If you're seeing through this hole, through the next hole, and seeing the light at the backboard, or at 17 feet off the water, the Earth is flat. If he's holding it up at 23 feet high and we're seeing the light, well, that's because the Earth's curved. So I should only be able to see it when it's at 17 feet. Okay, go ahead and drive down there, Enrique. You're going to hold the light there. Well, Enrique, how high is your light? So I should only be able to see it when it's at 17 feet. All right, yeah. You know, it's just... You're going to hold the light there. Enrique, we don't see you, Enrique. Lift up your light way above your head. Interesting.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE, welcome back to the channel that does the stupidity what if the guy that died in the plane crash was the body double of the leader of the Wagner group, what he's going to do to Putin. Wow, that was an unnecessary long and convoluted intro. Hello guys, thank you for joining me for, what are we on, Thursday? A Thursday evening stream. I know it might be strange to see me here at this time, but I do exist before midnight. This is empirical evidence of that fact. Tonight, I'm not having a debate. I'm having a structured discussion with what could arguably be called the largest flat earther on the globe, Jeranism, Jaren Campanella. Runs the channel Jeranism, works closely with the Globebusters group, and you may know him from the interesting meme that you saw at the beginning of the stream there. We will get to talking about that, but please do not use that as evidence against Jeranism, and we will discuss why later in the stream. Jaren's over there doing his intro and stuff at the moment. He's got about 1 minute left to go before he's in. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. If you could do me a massive favor and please share the stream with your friends, your parents, your enemies, your dog, your neighbor, even if they don't watch YouTube, just make them watch the stream. Make it larger, make it bigger, make more people see what I do here, and I would really very much appreciate it. Last day of the month, next month you can see a bunch of changes to the channel as I get back into the video production side of things. I've come out of the bad side of my mental health problems that I had, and hopefully I am in a position where doing scripted videos will be something I can do again. I want to say thank you to everyone for the massive amount of support that you have given me throughout my time here on YouTube, and the support you've already given me here today. As Jiffy Cones gives us $2 and said, "This is sure to be intriguing." I did it. I did it right? No, you didn't. Jiffy Cones also gifted a membership, and then DL, member for 17 months, says, "What's dumber, sea level or horizontal eye zone?" Toss up. And then Ketliana Verin gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much. That's already 6 gifted memberships during this stream. That is incredible. Jaren's just getting going. He's got as many intros as me. So this should be an interesting one, guys. maybe not quite what you expect. You're going to see me maybe eating some crow during this conversation, as, you know, I am mostly human and do get some things wrong every now and then. Recently I did get something wrong, and you can believe that Jeranism is going to shove that down my throat, and rightly so, because if they get something wrong, I like to do the same thing to them. So we will also discuss intellectual honesty. That's right. Thank everyone for being here. How are you all doing today? You have a good week? Getting to the end of it, getting to the end of the month. Payday for everyone. Always fun. Clive Wells says, clones that get things wrong get replaced. I'm not a clone, though. Why would you say that? Dano says you need to ask him about Mark, Sargent, and Toon's video. Well, I mean, Jaren isn't other flat earthers, so I probably shouldn't ask him about other flat earthers, just the things that he says. He said he should bring me in any second now, so I'm just waiting for him to go. Here we got Nike Spirits. I'm looking forward to this. Me too, very much so. Very much so. And there he is.
With me. Maybe not.
Hello.
All right, he was there. What do you know? Give me 1 second. I'm just going to make sure a couple things are working that don't seem to be working yet. There the clock goes. Okay, good. Are you going to be, is that the screen that's going to be up the whole time? Because I'm going to have to like zoom in.
Yeah, that's what's showing on my side. Is that right?
Okay, I'll fix it. 1 second. Let me just do that. I didn't know he's going to be doing that, so let me just change this a little bit and we should be good to go. What is that called over there? Okay, I see it. And I'm going to zoom in here. You can start if you want. Just quick who you are in case my audience doesn't know. I'm sure that they do. They probably don't watch you though.
Hello. I want to say thank you, Jaren, for agreeing to have this conversation. It's a long time coming. And hello to anyone on Jaren's side. I'm Craig, known as FTFE. I run the YouTube channel FTFE, where I spend my time trying to debunk the flat Earth and having a lot of fun doing it. You know, I know that there's a lot of disagreements between our side, but I hope this conversation can be a sign that decent conversations can be had even if we very much disagree with each other. Also, you know, how intellectual honesty works. So yeah, thanks, Jaren, for having me on. I really much appreciate it. Would you mind doing the same for mine? If anyone doesn't know who you are, give yourself an intro.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jaren from Jeranism, and I am a real flat earther, believe it or not. Yes, everything I've seen over the years leads me to believe that governments lie deeply about things that we can actually verify and touch right here. So to think that they lie about sicknesses and illness and everything that they lie about, and then that they're telling me the truth about what's in the sky that I'll never go to, seems insane to me. So that's basically it. People can think I'm not a flat earther. Whatever makes you sleep well at night is fine by me. But I also believe that I don't mind having these conversations as long as they are adult conversations. So if they devolve into name calling and yelling and screaming, then I just figure it's not worth it to anybody. And I do believe that our, you know, that what you surround yourself with can actually rub off on you. So if I just surround myself by all the negativity and all the hate words and vitriol that goes on sometimes in this community or in these communities, then I feel like I'm just hurting myself in the long run. So I'd rather ignore you all if that's what it comes down to. But if you could have an open conversation and, you know, hear each other out, then I have no problem doing that. And so I think that's what we're going to try today. We'll see how it goes. And then let me just put the layout up there real quick for everybody to see.
Yep.
So the reason I do it this way rather than have a moderator is just, you know, I don't think we need a moderator if we're just going to be adults about it. And we want to make it, because I told FTFE when I watched like him and Flatzoid or something, the conversation will be going great. They're hitting different topics. It's going well. I'm able to hear some things, hear them out. But then they'll hit like a wall. They'll hit one item. And because they don't see eye to eye, it's like you get stuck there. And so I just remember driving in my car somewhere, and for like a half hour, I'm just pissed. Like, move on. Let's go. Move on to the next thing. Stop arguing about the same thing. But so this is why we kind of did it this way with the clock. And let me bring this up so you can see. So we have this is our schedule for today, or our layout, which is just an intro for 2 minutes each. We're just going to do that real quick. Then we'll go into quick questions. We each have 3 questions for the other, which should just be a minute at the most for those. And then we'll get into the topics, which we each brought 6. And we kind of discuss whether or not we would show each other first. We decided to do that this way, so we did both show each other what our topics would be, and then we'll have a 2-minute conclusion. That's it. So it should be short, should be easy, and if it's painless and goes well, then maybe we'll do it again. If not, maybe it'll be the first time and last time. But go ahead.
Yeah. Now, feel free to call me Fight the Tight Shirt as much as you want. I'm good with that.
You don't mind?
No, that's cool. Because I did. I fought the tight shirt and I won. So.
Yes, you are. You're losing weight, I hear. So it was your.
A lot.
You wanted to talk about our nickname. Although you told me that Austin came up with it, and I'd like to debate that, because I'm pretty sure it was me who came up with it first. But we can go back and check.
He told me that he did, but you know, I take it that if you said you did it, then thank you to you, because that's one of the things that thoroughly encouraged me to go to the gym and start sorting myself out.
Yeah, that's why we did it. We did it because we want you healthy.
Oh, you care about me? How nice.
Yeah. Care about you. Sure I do. All right, and so yeah, we got time sections, and then when the bell goes off, we should move on. If we can't really do well during the 5-minute ones, we'll do like 2.5 minutes each or something. So, all right, we're gonna flip a coin. Let me get that up here just to see who can choose whether to go first. Flip a coin. Let me put this on the screen so that we know there's nothing funky going on. And where is that one? Okay, already I'm having problems. There it's left. Okay, so this is the coin flip page. There you go. You can go ahead and call it. Ready? And
heads.
Okay, calls heads, and it is. It is tails. All right, I'll go second, so I'll let you go first.
Roger.
And so we're going to start with the intro. So just 2 minutes. I'll set your 2-minute clock, and we will be good to go.
So the intro, just rough my thoughts on flat Earth in general, really. Is that
Sure.
it?
Yeah, just kind of overview, and then we'll go from there. So, oops, that's not the right screen. Let me get this one on there. All right, and you got your clock. I set it to 9, but let's start it and go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, so obviously I think the Earth's a globe, and I think all the evidence points towards that. And I've personally never seen any evidence that stands up to scrutiny that shows that the Earth is flat. I've got a degree in physics and a degree in nuclear engineering, and I've spent my life studying and learning about the world and how it works. And the physics of how the universe works, for me, points to the Earth being a globe. The experiments that are done show to me that the Earth is a globe. So that's kind of why I do what I do. I base my entire position on logic and evidence. I don't like to say that I have beliefs. I won't necessarily just believe something because somebody else has said it. I like to see more evidence than just listening to one person go, well, this has been done, so, there you go. Wherever I can, I like to be able to test things myself, but, that's not always possible. So we have to look at all of the evidence in its totality. So my position is always based on the evidence that I could see, and if I'm able to go and test. And like I said, none of the evidence that I've seen would show that the Earth is flat or that space is fake or any of the things that flat earthers say. I find it hard to nail down the position of flat earthers sometimes, because there seems to be many different factions of flat earthers that will say different things. Like obviously Darren will know his current arguments with Oakley over certain positions on science. So debating flat earthers can sometimes be difficult because there's so many different positions that you have to argue against. So for this conversation in particular, if you, Jeranism, feel like I'm strawmanning you in any way, please pull me up, because I don't want to have that kind of conversation. I don't want to be debunking or going against things that you personally don't think is your position. So I hope this could be a nice structured civil conversation and a doorway to possibly more in the future.
Thank you. Perfect. All right. And for myself, I think it can be said that if I can get this clock to start, come on. What are we doing here? 7. There it goes. All right. So I think that people who think that they are smart never go looking for answers to questions that they think they have answers for, which can be a problem. It can be a problem if you've got indoctrination. And I'm not taking anything away from people who have degrees, who spent that time in college, which I did not. But I would hope that they would recognize that there is a possibility there for a lie to be pushed on a group of people. And so if you're talking about this particular one, and I could show you evidence of a guy he's a philosopher of science. I can't remember his name. I showed him on my show last week, but he's coming out now and saying that he doesn't think that things like cosmology, things like astrophysics should be considered science anymore. And there's a reason for that. And I would hope that your audience would start to realize that there is a difference between applied science, computer science, and the science of the sky, which is just lights that they tell you are certain things, and that there's certain sizes and there's certain speeds, and they necessarily don't have to be the case. So this is the problem: is if you teach a group of people, so let's say astrophysics majors, hey, here's how we do this, and here's how we do that, and here's the distances that we know because of the standard candle. People just go along with it and never ask, well, how is it a standard candle? Who verified the distance to these standard candles? Oh, well, we have this cosmic ladder and distance ladder. So it's always these steps. And what basically this philosopher of science was saying is, if we ever go back, and this is why science can't really look at its foundations, because if one of those things is wrong in the foundations that built the current heliocentric model, then the whole thing crumbles. And so this is why a lot of people don't even know that there's problems, that there is a crisis in cosmology, that they're not even sure that we are expanding anymore, that there is no expansion of the universe. It's all derived, it's all contrived, and then they build a structure after that, and people think because you can do some equations that means that must be true. So my goal today is to get some people on Craig's side. I'll never convince Craig, I know that, but I want to get some people on Craig's side to see flat Earth a little differently than maybe they did coming in. So, okay, that's the intro. So we'll move on to questions. We each have 3 questions for each other. You can go first and ask me whatever your first question was.
Get up my list to remember what I'm saying. Right, so it's kind of the same for you, where a lot of people on my side say, oh, Jeranism's a scammer, that he's not a real flat earther. What's your opinion of me in particular and what I do? Do you think that I'm just a grifter, or do you think I'm doing this because I actually believe what I say?
Okay, number one, think you believe in the globe. I believe that you, like I said, you got a degree in physics, and so you think that there's no possibility that a science like that can be wrong, or that you could have been taught incorrectly. There's too many people that have to be in on it, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think that you're real as far as that goes. I think that the difference between you and I is I do this because I want the truth, and I think people deserve the truth. Whereas I think you do it a little bit more for fun. It's kind of easy. It's low-hanging fruit. You basically sit around like, oh, who's the people that would be the easiest to make fun of? Oh, flat earthers, because everyone's been taught that flat earth is the most ridiculous, insane belief that there ever could be. And so you don't even have to be funny. You don't even have to be smart. You can just get on YouTube and make fun of flat earthers, and you'll gain an audience, which, to me is a problem. But do I think that you are a grifter? Well, I think that there's not a lot of other subjects where like people are just debunkers of that one. So like there's no like Bigfoot debunker, fight the Bigfoot channel. So I do think it is kind of low-hanging fruit. I would give it that. But no, a grifter, no. I think that people who put time and effort into something that people take or watch or benefit from, no, I don't think that that's grifting. I think that that's what everybody does for a job. And what you and I do, I don't know if you do this full time, but if you do, then you recognize that it's a benefit. It's a blessing to get to do this. And so, yeah, I'm not going to take that away from you. If you're providing something to people that they enjoy and they're paying you money for it, I don't think that's grifting.
Okay,
So
I appreciate that.
Okay. I'll ask the same question to you, because it is something that is said quite often in your camp, that either I'm grifting or I'm a liar or I'm making this up. So I'll ask you, do you think those things are true, or what would you say?
I'll be completely honest. I used to think that you were a scammer. I used to think that you in no way thought the earth was flat. And partly that was to do with the interesting moment. It was kind of put across that, you clearly showed that the earth was a globe, yet how could you still be a flat earther? And then filming the ISS transit in the moon and things like that. And for me, originally, I was like, well, he knows that the earth's a globe because he's done these things. There's no way that he can be a flat earther. So he's just scamming. He's just, he's got a large audience. He can't ever let that go. And that was my position. And that's what I've said many, many times. But you and I have been talking back and forth for a couple of months now. I've watched a bit more of your stuff, a bit more deeply to try and understand you. I watched your discussion with Toon, and I have completely done a 180 on my position. I think that you genuinely believe that the Earth is flat. I think that you're doing what you're doing because you think that we are being lied to. I think there is parts of denial of basic facts that maybe have been overlooked, but I don't think in any way that you are lying about being a flat earther. I think you genuinely hold this position that you think is true, and you're not just doing it to run a channel and scam people. You, in my honest opinion, are a real flat earther.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that as well. And yeah, I would hope people would recognize that there is not a lot of money here. So it's not like the Globe channels probably get all their stuff monetized, and we just don't. No live stream is monetized right after it's done. They give you block for community guidelines, or not advertiser friendly. I mean, so anyway, it's just funny when you hear people say that we're cleaning up. My Lamborghini's in the driveway, I guess. All right, you are on to question number 2.
Right, so a bit on the back of that, what would it take for you personally to come around and say, no, I was wrong, the Earth's not flat, I think the Earth's a globe?
Well, I think it would take a lot, because at this point I've seen too much to kind of just say, let's say like Ranty, what happened with Ranty, which seems weird to me, to put forth all these years of all these observations and every time say that everything proves flat over and over again, and then to find one image that isn't something you even took, and then to completely flip-flop your position, to me seems not very genuine. But I could be wrong. Maybe he did. Maybe that one image. But then it kind of leads to, was he lying the whole other time, or just kind of like forcing things through? So I don't really think that it will ever be like one image or one thing. It would take an end to the lies. It would take us getting a clear answer about why we don't see stars in space, and or if we see stars in space. There's astronauts saying both, and so that's a problem, because we pay our space agency, at least in this country, NASA gets $80 million a day, and so I don't care how much of the budget that is, or what you need to think of it in terms of money, that we are handing somebody $80 million a day to provide space travel, if you want to say, or investigations or research or whatever. But what would happen first is, if you gave me $80 million, I would focus on the people who gave me that money first, and I would take care of the things that they wanted, and then I would do the rest that I could. Well, we always get told, they have better things to do. Then you can keep saying that, but it gets a little bit ridiculous when the ISS has been in orbit for 21 years and no astronaut has ever gone to the window at night and showed a camera out the window. There's a problem with that. How can it be that in 21 years you can't go over and do that? Well, it's because if it's night outside and it's night, then you should be able to see the stars. And for some reason, they can't show us that, so they just ignore it, and you guys ignore it and act like it just doesn't happen. And that's frustrating, because it's, to me, why can't we come together as humanity and say, don't you think some of these things are questionable? And you guys can still believe in it and say, yeah, you're right, it is questionable. And then as a human race, we approach NASA and say, why can't you put a camera on the moon that faces the Earth? Why don't we have that yet? It would show children in school how eclipses work. They'd be able to watch it in real time. There is no excuse for some of these things that they don't provide. So it not being a science is a problem for me. I don't know how they're going to ever prove it to me, because unless you're talking about going to space myself, and even in that case, I would want to make sure that the helmet glass isn't causing curves, that the windows of the craft aren't causing curves. So it would take quite a bit. Now, is it impossible? No. I even think that if somebody let me talk to an astronaut for 20 minutes on the ISS in an interview, that I would immediately believe in orbits, if I was able to talk to them for 20 or 30 minutes uninterrupted and have them do some things that would show that they're not on wires, that would show that they're not using CGI, that they're not using pre-taped stuff. So again, it would take a lot, but it's not impossible. It's just highly unlikely.
Okay.
So my second question for you is, I asked McToon the same thing, which is your thoughts on SpaceX changing their live stream and the stupidity surrounding it. I said it to Toon. I looked at the comments, and there's people in there like, what's his name? Universe Live? What's his name? The guy that films with
Astronomy Live.
Thank you. Astronomy Live. So, he's in there saying, Jaren's way off because I actually film these things, and therefore the record does match my record. Therefore, it's okay that they change their live stream. which is just insane to think because nobody else was there filming it. So then we have to trust you, which is just, it leads to this whole thing of like, okay, well, you claim that that's enough evidence, but it's not. What we're talking about here, and please get me straight here. I'm not saying SpaceX faked anything.
I mean,
okay?
honestly,
I'm not saying they faked anything.
Sorry. Honestly, I don't know. The whole thing confuses me, right? I've looked into this a lot because I like to try and get answers, right? And I've found several different sources that show what the original stream was, and then you look at what it's now, and clearly that top right camera that seems in the original stream to be a mirror of the one on the left now shows something different, right? Which I don't know how that happened, because when the tools you have to edit live streams are as simple as you can cut out bits or put a blur over something. There's not the facility within YouTube, as far as I'm aware, to go in and physically change just one part of the screen. So I look at that and I don't know how it happened, right? As far as I'm aware, the functionality to do that doesn't exist. But clearly, right, there is a difference between the original live stream and what is there now. And if I'm completely honest, I do not have an answer, and I wouldn't attempt to come up with an answer because I don't have one. The only thing that I can think in my head is, sometimes when you're doing a live stream and the internet where you are might go a bit weird and it'll buffer, and people watching the live stream at that time, they will see the buffer. But then if they watch the live stream back, that buffer doesn't appear. It's just, it continues. Was it something like that? Was it that camera buffered or something? But again, that still doesn't explain how it was only part. So, I mean, I have to be honest and say I don't know.
Okay, because you can see that the image is actually laid on top of the other graphics. So it's something done after the fact. It wouldn't be something during that was buffering. But I guess my question is more concerning, do you see that being a problem? If YouTube, which has live streams, which we all have to abide by the same rules, if I see live stream on your video and it says live streamed on such and such date, I make the assumption that you did that live, that nothing's been changed. Yeah, you can, like you said, chop off the beginning or end, and it says you have to be under 100,000 views. Of course, SpaceX was into the millions of views when they did it. But my question is more, do you see an issue if YouTube allows anyone to edit a live stream but not put anywhere on there that it's been edited? I mean, if you edit your comment, Craig, YouTube puts
shows,
it. Right. So how do you edit live stream video and not have to tell us that it's, because now what it does is it just kind of dismisses all live stream. Nobody can come to me anymore and say, look, this is live stream by NASA on this day. I say, who cares? They could change it.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean,
yeah.
I've got to agree with your point here, Jaron, that, it's something that is weird, right? I mean, maybe we all know that Elon's got more money than fathomable, right? So maybe he went into the YouTube offices and chucked a bunch of money and said, let me edit the stream, and they've got a way of doing it.
Could be.
But if that's the case, then you're right. Even if you edit your live stream to blur something out, it changes things. Like there's no longer a live chat and things like that. But that live stream still has the chat that was there. Yet it's clearly been edited, right? And it does make you think, well, why have they done that? The only way that I can possibly try and justify it so that it's okay is that Elon wanted it to show what it should have shown and paid YouTube a bunch of money to show that. And somehow, there was tools that they managed to have that you and I as creators simply don't have. I don't know. But I'm not going to attempt to give a concrete answer as to why it happened. And, to speculate why it happened can go down a massive rabbit hole. I 100% agree. It's weird. And
you would say it's wrong.
Yeah, I think if they've edited a live stream without telling you that it's been edited, then I think that's a little bit wrong. If you watch a live stream, you want to see what happened, you miss something, then you would like to get the whole thing. And if it's edited, you would probably like to know. But it's a weird thing that if anyone on my side has an answer, please let me know, because I've researched this a lot, and if you're honest, and you have to be in these conversations, there isn't an answer as to how or why that happened, as far as I can see.
It's for me. I mean, if you're talking about sides, we have sides and everything like that. It doesn't matter what the sides are when it comes to just, everyday things that we should all agree on, right? So if somebody told me, hey, this this flat earther is able to change his live stream and nobody else is able to do it, I'll be the first one to call it out and say, this is horseshit. Why is this flat earther able? But on the other side, when it happened and I pointed it out, I thought I would get some people on your side to say, okay, I agree with you. That shouldn't happen. Yet what I got was Red's Rhetoric and all these guys saying, no, what they're doing is correcting the record. It's absolutely acceptable. They, you know, and it's like, okay, now we're just getting into crazy. I mean, so now we can correct the record for live stream. It just becomes this whole like us against them thing where I'm like, can't we just agree that there's a problem if a space agency, a private space agency, is able to do something on a live stream none of us are able to do? But thank you for saying that at least it's wrong. That's a step in the right direction that I didn't get from
I don't
others.
understand why it happened. And I mean, yeah, maybe Elon wanted to correct the record and that's why it happened. But if that was the case, why couldn't they say, oh, look, we screwed up the live stream, we're fixing it, you know? Okay.
Right, or just put edited on such and such date, or, you know.
I mean,
if you
that
or I
to me
how many
would
times
make
have you
more
screwed
sense,
up?
right? Oh, all the
screwed up.
fucking time. I screw up all the time. I mean, I've done nearly 800 live streams, you know, and, you know, a couple of hundred scripted videos. There's so many editing mistakes in that, you know? And
yeah, and you want to correct the record, right? So
yeah.
So that's the thing about a live stream. If you do a live stream, there is no correcting of the record. So it just sucks that there's somebody out there who's like, I'm going to do a live stream. I'm going to get all these millions of views and I'm going to be able to correct the record. So, all right, your question, third question, go ahead.
Right. So, obviously, there's lots of space agencies doing lots of new things at the moment. Like Virgin Galactic have recently done the first paid tourism trip to space. Now, whether you believe that that happened or not, my question to you is, do you think it would be possible for a flat earther or a group of flat earthers to get together and put someone on your side in that position on Virgin Galactic? And if that happened, would you guys believe what they said if they went to space and said, yeah, I could see the curve? Or, you know, would you then have problems believing what that person said?
Yeah, I know it sucks to say that, you know, it has to be me, right? I mean, I get, and then there's, you know, half the people that don't like me or agree with me who would think if I even came back and said, no, I did see the curve, they wouldn't believe that anyway. So I get that there's a problem there. But yes, I think it is possible to, you know, get them enough money to put somebody up there. But again, can we have a GoPro with them the entire time? These kind of things that for some reason they shut down, right? Like if you go on the Jeff Bezos one, they like don't let you use a camera. They have cameras in there supposedly, but you can't bring your own and look out the window. So there's just some weird things like that. But let me just say this about the Virgin Galactic and space travel, is I do find it weird that right after the moon landings, Pan Am came out, was accepting tickets, selling tickets for people to go to the moon. We've seen the Jetsons, all these talks, you know, Wernher von Braun's spinning space station. So they sold everybody on these ideas of space tourism. There'll be hotels in space, there'll be trips to the moon, all these things. But really what they've now come to, and imagine if the Earth was flat and it wasn't a ball, what would you expect to see from these people? Which is exactly what we see, which is them building the idea of space travel. You're going to have hotels, you're going to have these trips, you're going to go to the moon. And then instead, what do we get? We get a reverse bungee jump. They literally throw people up as high as they can and then let them float down and be like, you went to space, bro. No, they didn't go into orbit. They didn't do anything that would prove that the Earth's a ball. They were thrown up as high as they can and let float down. And that's all Jeff Bezos does. That's all that Virgin Galactic does. So that's not space tourism. That's let's throw you up as high as we can and then put some feathers out or some feathered wings so that we float down and give you the illusion of floating in space. So to me, it is not impressive. And I will admit impressive when we start doing all the things that they promised. And if we really went to the moon in 1969, we would be way further than throwing people up as high as we can in the sky. To me, it's been 50 years. No other kind of technology is like, you know, goes backwards like that to so easily to send people to the moon. And then now we throw you up in the sky and that's all we can do. So, but again, all the space lovers, they think it's great. They're like, that's okay with them. Even though we've been lied to up to that point, it's like they love space so much that they'll allow anything right now. If they said, oh, we'll actually just, you know, we'll throw you up into space and you can see the curvature there, and people are just dying to do that. So they're like, okay, I believe this now, even though they'll never do it in their life. Probably nobody listening to this show will ever go up in a Virgin Galactic in their entire life, just because of the cost. It's not for you and I, it's for who? Elon Musk, Bezos, and Richard Branson, three of the richest people in the world, which is another thing I think they do on purpose. So they want us to believe that like traveling to space is super expensive. None of us can ever do it. It's just for the rich. It's all kicking the can down the road.
Okay.
Is it my last question?
Yes.
Oh, so I said, and you kind of admitted that you rode the interesting bandwagon for a long time. So did everybody. I think it's more indicative of the globe Earth community than it is of me to see how quickly, when something is said to be globe proof, that everybody jumps on it and says, this is definitely globe proof. Nobody ever asked me for any of the particulars. They didn't ask me for the, the refraction going on, the refractive index. They didn't ask me for the temperature. They didn't ask for anything. They just took interesting in what a movie showed them to be proof. And to me, that's exactly the problem, is that throughout our lives, we've been shown documentaries, we've been shown space travel movies, we've been shown these guys get up on stage and talk about science and talk about space. And the problem with that is that if you really want that to be true, like we saw with this movie, that globe believers will simply latch onto it, call it proof, even though nothing of the such was ever provided. So my question to you would be, since you've now seen the evidence, would you say that that is extremely weak evidence, and evidence that if I did the same thing, so if I went out and observed and saw evidence of both curve and flat, and then put a movie out, and in the movie, I simply put the one clip of me showing the Earth to be flat, and then step back and say, look, we proved the Earth is flat, and everybody goes crazy, and they all go around saying that, even though you find out later, oh, wait, what, Jaron, you saw numerous other observations that showed curve, and you didn't put them in your movie, you guys would hang me. But with this movie, nobody cares. It's like, so my question to you is, now that you've seen that evidence, don't you think it's extremely weak evidence for the shape of the Earth?
Yeah, it's not evidence for anything. That what they did to you was pretty shady, all right? Because it very clearly implies that your experiment showed that the Earth was a globe. But and I did run with that interesting bandwagon. I sold like 1,800 T-shirts with interesting on it.
What?
I know.
1,800?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I've been trying to sell.
I was selling them during my 20,000 subscriber celebration when I was live for 20 hours, and I sold quite a few of them.
I guess I should do the same thing. I've tried to sell hats. I can't sell 288 hats for the life of me. But anyway, go ahead.
But it did show, and I showed that clip at the beginning of the stream, but with a little disclaimer, because it's funny and it appears to show a flat earther proving that the Earth is a globe. But number one, they didn't show the actual experiment that you did. They kind of misconstrued what you'd actually set up, and the point where you said interesting wasn't a point where it was proving a globe. From what I understand, it was a point where, oh, that doesn't really show either way. That's quite interesting. And it was just deceptive editing that made it look like there's something that proves a globe. Oh, interesting. It's a documentary on Netflix. Right? It's for entertainment, right? And they made it entertaining.
Right, and I get that. I mean, I don't take anything away from the movie because I actually think it's a good movie. Of course, I don't want to be misrepresented in it, but I'm just saying from a movie standpoint, from an outsider's perspective, I could see why it's a good movie. It was beautifully done, like it's a pretty movie. But yeah, to me, it's just dirtbag to have them have to end the movie that way, and then also doing it in a way that they never said that I proved curve. So there's not even a legal recourse because I talked to a lawyer and he says, but is that scene real? Did you really say interesting at that moment? I said yes. Okay, well then there's nothing. Then what they did is just put a real scene in a movie. Great. Did it imply things? Yes, but they left it up to the mind of the
exactly
to the watcher.
Yeah.
And again,
it's a clear implication, but
it's just I get it. They want that movie in a way like, wait, is the Earth flat or round? So they wanted it to close out in a way that people walk away feeling, reconfirmation of their beliefs.
Yeah. You're never going to live it down. You're going to have interest
and I have
following
to embrace
you the rest
of
your life. But
and it sucks because every time I say the word interesting, it hits me in the head. So I can't even say that damn word anymore.
But from my side,
I say it all the time.
We need to make sides. You know what I mean? For the people that think the Earth is a globe, we shouldn't be using that as evidence for either the Earth being a globe or that Jeran did something stupid. The only thing that Jeranism did that was maybe stupid was signing the contract the way it was worded.
Yes, I agree.
I think
and be careful because that's how they're all worded. I think. I mean,
was it something as simple as you agree that they can use your likeness and things like that? Yeah.
No, it actually said they could use me however they wanted. whatever
Yeah.
they felt was best for the
Yeah,
best.
never sign something that says they can use you however they want. You need to be specific in the way that you're allowed to be used. So maybe the only stupid thing that you did was signing that contract, right? We can all agree that.
I would agree. I would agree with that, and I learned my lesson. But yeah, those guys will be shysters with you, and they'll tell you things like, "Oh, well, we can't give you final edit permission, or everybody has to have it," and they kind of just talk you, and it's all in good faith, and so then it sounds like, all right, these guys can't possibly screw me, and then I forget people are like that. All right, so we are on to the 5-minute sections. So these will just be kind of open. And by the way, if you want to send in any super chat questions for Craig or myself, you can do so on this side. I'm sure Craig is doing the same thing over there.
Same here, guys.
So if you do have questions, send them in. But we're just going to do 5-minute topics. So yours is first. Go ahead and start, and then we'll just have open conversation.
Right.
Did I write those?
Right. So yeah, my first topic was, and it's one that's kind of been big in this conversation for a while, and it's about celestial navigation. Now I've done celestial navigation a lot, and I've researched it a lot, and there's celestial navigation, frankly, is based on the Earth being a globe. I know a lot of it is to do with measuring the lights in the sky, which there is issues with it within the conversation, but the whole process of doing celestial navigation is something that is specifically set up with the knowledge that the Earth is a globe. And if you were to do the methods that you have to do celestial navigation and the Earth was flat, then it wouldn't work. There's a lot of discrepancies that would appear because it's all based on spherical geometry. It's things as simple as, if the Earth was flat, then you could use what you do with celestial navigation to calculate the height of Polaris, and it would apparently have different positions based on where you are on the Earth. But when you do it with a globe, the only thing that you assume is that the stars are far away and the light is basically parallel. And that works with the globe. And the maths behind it, to calculate how far away you are from a GP, is all based on the globe by timing your degree by the amount of nautical miles. So with something that is set up to be working on a globe, and it obviously does work, how do you rectify that with the flat Earth?
So my first question would be, do we know, so when you get the almanac and it gives you the GP of a stars, people have gone there and made sure that that is correct?
Yeah.
The GP is right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, not just one, it's throughout the centuries, sailors will constantly be updating the positions of the stars because, even though they're kind of in the same position, they do move very slightly and enough to affect what you would do with celestial navigation. So throughout the years, sailors are constantly updating and adjusting the almanacs. And obviously nowadays it's much more accurate to measurement and updated a lot more regularly.
Yeah, I'd like to get one and verify some of those things. But my thing is, and I've talked to Toon about this, that you guys like to say, and number one, just because people will definitely want this being said, I do agree that it is weird that celestial navigation is done from a flat baseline, the actual measurement. I don't think it's okay to say that celestial navigation can't be done on a sphere Earth, because I do think if we lived on a sphere, you would be able to take the tangent and call that the bottom of your angle. So I don't see a problem with that. But I do think I don't think you could even disagree that all those angles are taken from a flat baseline. Even you would agree with that.
Well, when you say a flat baseline, the baseline isn't the surface of the Earth. The flat baseline is literally an imaginary line from your sextant to the horizon. And the fact that it's always taken from above the surface of the Earth. So it's going to be looking down. So it's more of a slope than actually being flat. You then add your correct, yes, a straight line, but obviously not completely flat relative to the surface. You add your corrections in for refraction and for dip correction and things like that to bring it to what would be your horizontal. But the baseline isn't the surface of the Earth, so it's irrelevant as to whether the angle has to have a flat, because any angle that you can take the angle between any two things, and the imaginary line between you and either point is going to be a straight line. That doesn't mean that the surface of the Earth is the same as that imaginary line.
Okay. And then I talked to Toon about this. If we had a flat Earth, let's say the Earth is flat, there are cartographers, there are mathematicians smart enough to project that onto a sphere. That is possible. Now people think they live on a sphere. So if you then have GPS and you have celestial navigation that looks like it's designed from the sphere, that doesn't prove that we're on a sphere, because you can lie to people, you can trick them. And so to me, it's just not a very good argument, because it's, well, can we project from a flat earth onto a sphere? Yes. Okay. And then from there, can they draw a celestial dome, and can they and this is why I asked you about the GP, because for all I know, maybe those GPs are slightly off, and that's where they hide the trickery. Because I do think that is a trick. Most of these things are tricks, and you could do it easily by hiding things. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. I was more talking to myself. But so the fact that it works, though, it is what I see as the problem for the flat Earth. It works based on the knowledge that the Earth is a globe. If you were to project it to any other kind of shape, be it a cylinder or a flat map or anything, the angles that you take to the stars no longer work the same way. The light would have to bend in weird, crazy ways that doesn't make sense for the measurements that you get in reality to match what you would see if the Earth was flat. Now, obviously, I can't say to you that I've personally confirmed that every GP is what it is. I have done some, 20 plus years ago when I did my celestial navigation before I joined the Navy, but I absolutely couldn't say to you, yeah, well, I know that every GP is exactly as it is because I verified that. I don't think anybody could. The only thing I could say to you is maybe try and check a few yourself and see if that would help you, in your mind, bring that together. But
okay.
There just doesn't seem to be a way to make celestial navigation work the way it does if the Earth is flat.
Let me ask you this, and then if you think it's worth doing. So if I were to design a world on a flat map, and then I were to project it onto a sphere and show people that, look, we lived here, now I projected it here, show the GPs, show the distances that we're getting, and show that it would work there, but it's not the real place that we live, would that be the kind of evidence that you would need to know that that's not a good argument anymore? Or are you going to just say that, well, it's because I fixed the books, basically, which is what I'm saying that they did. But I don't know if that's good enough evidence to just show, look, I can also cook the books.
I would have to see a practical way for it to work if the Earth was flat. Forgetting about the projections from one to the other, I would personally just have to see a way that celestial navigation practically functionally works if the Earth was flat. And from what I understand about celestial navigation, and from my own personal experiences with celestial navigation and the way that it's set up, the algorithm that is called that you go through as you do your celestial navigation process, it's all set up matching the fact that the Earth is a globe. And I don't see how that could be projected and still be an accurate thing the way that it is.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. But I want to look into whether or not the North would even be different. I'm trying to think of why would you have different circles in the North? If I'm in California and I take an angle to a star, and somebody else is in Europe and they take the same angle, I believe that you would be able to draw a circle on an AE map that would have us both on it. But I'm not really sure. I know that in the South, of course, we're going to have issues, but I'm not sure about the North. So
with the AE map in particular, if you take the angles that you get in reality and you try to map out a GP that would also fit on a globe, what you find is on the AE map it becomes an oblong, and the further south you go, the more of a stretched out oblong that GP that circle of equal altitude becomes to that GP.
It's oblong in the North.
It's more oblong. The more south you go, the more stretched out it becomes, just like the lines of latitude do as well. It becomes more of a strange shape the further south you go.
Sounds good. All right, we'll go to topic number 2. And now I need to find my topic sheet. 1 second. Where did I go here? Did you go first or me? Oh, I sent it to you.
I went first. Yeah, it's your turn.
So, I was just bringing up again, East and West being circles. I do appreciate you conceding that one. I want to ask if you think, huh?
I've got to eat crow on that one.
Just a little bit. Does that help you a little bit in seeing why some of us are flat earthers? Did it change you at all? Because here's what I would think is that when you have a certain view of the Earth, and I had the same view you did, because and this one thing I hope people remember, that we were all globe earthers. None of us started as flat earthers. We all believed the globe like you did, and we went looking to prove it, or we went looking into it, and that's when we became flat earthers. So one of those things that would have changed me right away is if really we did just stay straight east and west. I say, look at this map shows us turning, and this map it doesn't. But my question is, did it kind of show you where, okay, I see why they think this map works, that if east and west are actually circles, then this map does make sense, at least north of the equator. And then you understand that, you wouldn't be able to tell you're turning, and they could hide the flat earth that way. Is my question.
Yeah, so it made me understand the argument more about specifically what Dirth was saying in regards to the, its circles and the plane would have to turn. In my mind, I was having problems visualizing it because the geometry of the Earth means that you wouldn't be walking in a circle as tight as you would be if the Earth was flat. But obviously, it's still, as you move towards either pole, you're going to have to be turning. And it was just a problem of visualization in my head, and I had to model it out and look at it and get people to explain it to me so that I could actually visualize it in my head and get it right. And yeah, it does, from a flat earther perspective, oh, right, yeah, so east and west appear to be circles that you would have to turn, and, it'd be very slight and they could kind of hide it. But the problem is that that only works for north or south of the equator, right? I was completely wrong that you would still go straight if you were north or south. But obviously, if you were on the equator, you could walk straight forward and you would be following a great circle route. So that, for me, kind of still debunks the argument that you guys bring up, that planes would have to turn left or right for east and west, because you don't have to on the equator.
Correct. But again, we wouldn't know because nobody knows. So it's the same thing. If we wouldn't know at a 2,000-mile circle near the North Pole, we certainly wouldn't know at a 24,000-mile circle. You wouldn't even know if you're turning right or left, because on the flat Earth, again, you're going to turn a different direction when it gets to be down in the south. But I guess the problem that I see with it is I was taught north, south, east, west are the same. And I think that most people believe that north, south, east, west are the same.
What
but
do you
they're
mean
not.
the same?
Well, I mean, that they're all cardinal directions. There really is no difference. Like, I really thought that if I'm north of you, you're south of me. If I'm south of you, you're north of me, which is correct. But east and west do not work that way. If I'm east of you, you're not necessarily exactly west of me. And I think that that's weird that we were all taught in a way that kind of hides that a little bit. That's me personally. I mean, again,
yeah, I understand. I think the way that we are taught of it being cardinal directions makes sense, say, if you're using a map and it's a very local thing. It works in that perspective. Sure. If you've got a compass and you've got a very local map, then the cardinal directions absolutely work. Sure. Obviously, the problem with using a compass as well is that it doesn't exactly line up to north and south because of a magnetic deviation of the poles. So you wouldn't, if you're using a compass to go north, you wouldn't be going directly north. You would technically follow the run line, the spiral towards the pole. So yeah, east and west can be confusing because there's so many nuances behind it that unless you are, I suppose, taught specifically about it in terms of navigation, it's not something that you would ever learn or need to learn that deeply.
I agree with that. That's true. Yeah. You're not going to need, because it's just, we don't have east and west poles. So it should be expected that the lines of latitude are different than the lines of longitude, because all longitude lines are great circles. So if you're walking on any longitude line, you are walking straight according to the globe, at least. Yeah. But yeah, east west are different, and those are the lines that we would follow to go around. Did you have a topic you wanted to bring, or I thought? Oh no, we have the same thing on something else. That wasn't.
Yeah. So we were both going to be talking about mirror flashes, really. So
okay, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to cover on this. Just that I think people should recognize that sometimes when we think we have a understanding of how things work, that it doesn't hurt to go and make sure. I like what you did when you put out the question to your audience and you didn't say, Jaron and Dirth say this.
No.
I say, because when you did that, you'd immediately poison the well, and you're going to get everybody obviously against us. So by putting it out there, I think your poll was like 50-50, right?
It was spot on 50-50, yeah, which was very interesting. Let's see what I did there. And I think that goes to show how unintuitive of an answer it is, because it is a relatively hard thing to visualize, trying to picture what you could see as a simple circle when you're walking on the outside, but with it's a very
Yeah, it's
strange
difficult.
things
I
that,
think
you know,
that's because we can't live on a sphere personally, but I do see the nuances to it. And in fact, just so
yeah.
you know, I had a conversation the other night, and they called me into some Discord server with a bunch of flat earthers who all disagree. So they all say, they're all like, no, we walk straight. Just I'm like, well, how do you think we go straight on a flat earth and come back to where we started? They just couldn't grasp it either. So it's not just you guys, it's a tough one to swallow, tough to
Yeah,
get.
yeah. And, you know, I 100% admit that I was wrong. You know, I was convinced I was right. But I'm never going. I'm never just going to go, yeah, I'm right. That's it, 100%. I'm always going to have a niggling of doubt in the back of my mind that I'm always going to chase up.
Well,
and I kept chasing it up, and that kept niggling at me, and I kept chasing it up, and it was the right thing to do because I was wrong, which made me learn something, which I think is a brilliant thing. There's nothing wrong with being wrong as long as you learn from it, right? And now I've learned that I was wrong, and I understand something better.
Very good. And I appreciate you doing that, because a lot of Globers, if you have a different opinion, they're just going to storm off and say you're stupid, and nobody learns anything, and nobody grows, and nobody. So at least when I told you were wrong about it, you're like, let me look into this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay. And then you came back and said, no, I still think I'm right for this reason. And I said, okay, well, look at these things, And so it was like a nice back and forth to where you finally saw it and then said, all right, now I see it. So
yeah.
I hope for more of those in the future. All right, you're up, I believe.
Okay, right. Well, we'll save the mirror flashes for, I think, the end, because that's something that we're both talking about. Is that all right? So, my next point would be Foucault's pendulum. And specifically how Foucault's pendulum can be used to show not just that the Earth's a globe, not just that the Earth's rotating, but that the Earth is spherical in nature. Foucault's pendulum is something that I have personally done to test the claim, and I was able to calculate my latitude using just the swing of a pendulum and the drift from it, and that is a direct demonstration of forces imparted on something due to the fact that the Earth is rotating. It's an example of the Coriolis forces actually acting in real time to show you that the Earth is rotating. And the way that it shows that the Earth is a globe is because there's different forces depending on where you are on Earth. If you're at the North or South Pole, you're going to be exactly in alignment with the Earth's axial rotation, which means that because the pendulum is attached to a pivot point, the Earth would technically rotate underneath it once in 24 hours. So you would get a 360-degree drift of the swinging pendulum in 24 hours. But as you move towards the equator, because your orientation towards the axis of rotation changes, the forces imparted onto the pendulum are also changing, less and less as you move towards the equator. So when you do the Foucault's pendulum experiment, you can take the amount of drift that has been given over a certain amount of time and use that to find your latitude on Earth. And because you can find your latitude on Earth because the forces change, you can actually map out that data and actually show what the radius of the Earth and the shape of the Earth is. And I've never had any cohesive explanation from any flat earther as to why we are able to use the drift of a swinging pendulum to calculate our latitude on Earth within a margin of error. It makes complete sense if the Earth is a globe that is what we would expect to happen. But for what I can see, and the amount of times I've asked, I've never had an answer as to how that could happen on a flat Earth. So what are your thoughts?
So first, what do you think? Why would Einstein say that there's no terrestrial experiment, there's no optical experiment that can show that the Earth is moving, if that is in fact evidence right there? Like, why wouldn't he say, well, we do have the Foucault's pendulum, which shows. Okay. Good. I'm not cherry picking his evidence. He does say
it does, right? But that's specifically what he's talking about there is in relation to the Earth's orbit around the sun, because within relativity, it's hard to tell the difference between the sun moving compared to us and us moving compared to the sun. So when Einstein said that, he wasn't talking about the Earth's rotation. He was specifically talking about the Earth's orbit around the sun.
So you're saying we have equipment that is sensitive enough to detect the spin of the Earth, and we have a Foucault's pendulum that's able to tell the spin of the Earth, but there is no apparatus that can tell the much faster 66,000 mile per hour speed of orbit?
The only way that you would be able to measure the orbit of the Earth around the sun is to be outside of that reference frame to do it, because
but we do the spin, and we're inside that reference frame.
There's a difference between the being on something that is rotating around its own axis and being on something that is orbiting around something else. I mean, number one, the orbit around the Earth takes a year, right? So if there was anything that could measure it, the measurements would be very, very small, and within the margin of error would have to be so small that it would be able to pick that up. And I don't think there's anything that exists that's sensitive. But secondly, it's to do with the referencing. You would have to be looking outside of the reference frame to be able to measure the rotation. With the Foucault's pendulum, it's to do with its relation to the axial rotation, right? So you put the Foucault's pendulum on a different position than Earth, and it shows a different force acting on it because the Earth is rotating around a central axis. But we aren't able to change our position compared to a central axis of the orbit around the Earth. So we aren't able to measure it in that way. And the same way that on the equator, there is no Coriolis, the net sum of Coriolis forces is zero, right, at the equator. So a pendulum wouldn't drift at the equator. And we're orbiting, our orbit around the sun, is, I suppose, if you were to look at it as a sphere, that would be the equator. So there would be the net sum of the forces would be zero overall.
Okay, so if we were to go down to the equator and build a Foucault's pendulum, and it did show drift still, would that change your mind about the shape of the Earth?
It would be a problem that would have to be explained. Absolutely, because at the equator there should be zero drift for a Foucault's pendulum.
On a globe Earth, but on a flat Earth.
On a globe, yeah. If you are, if you're exactly perpendicular to the axis of rotation, then the net sum of all the forces acting on it are going to be zero. So you wouldn't get a drift. If we did get a drift at the equator, I'd have to look into why, because it wouldn't make sense. But I've looked, and as far as I can tell, I've not seen a Foucault's pendulum experiment done at the equator, and I think that's because it would be a boring thing to do to set up something to see nothing.
True, but it would, it's good evidence. And then just, we think that the sky is moving and the sky imparts its forces onto the Earth. That's something that's been said before. We're not the only ones. Einstein said it in a letter talking about the Sagnac effect, and there's a lot that goes into that, but we tend to think that that's what's happening, and that it would change based on where you're at on the Earth. You're going to have a different rotational velocity of the sky versus where you're at on Earth, and it would be able to be detected. And so you'd be able to say, oh, this is where we're at on a sphere. Again, you don't live on a sphere, the sky's moving. But just, that's our answer. You said nobody's given a good answer. All right, let's go on. Which number are we on here? Is it you or me? Me?
It's your turn now.
Okay. Should have these written down, not on my phone. But
I'd like to get into that one a bit deeper at some point if we could, because I very much like the Foucault's pendulum.
Okay, let's.
And I know that we're working on a time limit, so I don't want to get stuck down on one thing.
No, but that's good. I'm writing that down because it is something that I think is a big point of contention, and we've been kind of working it out and getting some of these details and finding out about these experiments that have been done millions of times. These interferometer experiments that keep showing some anomalies with what we would expect on a globe. So we should have a separate thing about that. All right. Let me see what my next question is, or my next topic. So, that's yours. Okay. So we did the east-west. All right. So sunsets in Australia versus sunsets in the north. So somebody's putting together the evidence right now. I don't have it for you right now, but I'll ask you, if we showed this evidence, what you would think of it. So I have a guy down in Australia who's filming sunsets throughout the year. So he filmed back at the our summer solstice, his winter solstice, and watched as soon as the top of the limb of the moon sets. Oops, sorry, I gotta set my clock. As soon as the top of the limb of the moon sets, then he starts calculating how long it takes until it's completely dark. Okay.
Right.
Because as you know, here in the north, what happens is in the summer, when the sun sets, we have an extended period of time of light. Maybe it's an hour and 15 minutes, hour 30. And then in our winter, we have, because this, well, I don't need to tell you where the sun is, but in our winter, that shortens. The sun sets and we only have, say, 35 to 45 minutes of light because of because of the nature of the way the sun works. Now, in Australia, we would expect then the opposite to be true, that in their summer, what we're finding is it's the opposite. So in the southern summer, their sun sets and it gets dark fast, 45 minutes. In their winter, the sun sets and it gets dark in an hour and 15. So what that leads us to believe is that the outer track of the sun is longer, making the sun have to move faster. It still goes 15 degrees an hour. Nobody's contesting that. But if the sun is moving faster, it's going to cause it to get darker faster. And so if we show that, which is a tough thing to show, but I mean, he's got the evidence. You just have to probably have somebody yourself do it so that you see it's the same. What would be the possible explanation for that?
What's the time differences again?
It seems to be about an hour and 15 minutes to get complete darkness at the most, and then like 45 minutes at the least. They're just opposite of the north. So in the north here, we have an hour 15 in summer, 45 in winter. But it seems like in the south, they're getting 45 minutes in the summer, an hour and 15 in the winter.
So the solstices should always be flipped, right? Like a complete mirror of each other. Because in the summer in the north, it's tilting towards the sun. In the summer in the south, it's tilting toward the sun. So it should be a complete flip. But you're saying that it shows that it takes longer to get darker in Australia than it does at 35 degrees north.
But on opposite times, right? So like in the north, let's say where I'm at, which is about 35 degrees north. If I were to watch the sunset and then time it from the time it sets to when it's completely dark, in the summer it would be an hour and 15 or so, and then in the winter it'd be a shorter time. So I would expect the same to be true in the south. In their summer should have a longer time, and in the winter shorter. But it's the opposite. In their summer, they get a shorter time after the sun sets until it's dark, and in the winter they get a longer time. So that matches well with the flat Earth map for us, because you've got a sun that has to move faster in the outer track to get around. It's, rather than moving 24,000 miles, it's probably doing 30,000, 33,000 miles. So it's actually moving at a quicker pace, about 1,500 miles per hour. And it, because of that, causes it to get dark faster. The sun moves away faster than it does in their winter, which in that case, the sun is doing the inner track, and therefore they see light longer because the sun is still kind of lingering around and not hurrying off it like it is in the south. So, and I know I don't have any evidence to provide you with, but my question would be, to start, it's, I already have the guy that's already, right now, he's filming every day and his count is going down. So he's seeing the light as we approach December, he's seeing the light go less and less and less. So right now he's about an hour 5. So in a month, he's going to be an hour. And in a month after that, he's going to be at 50. So his time is going down right now when it should be going up. The sun is heading towards him, at least in the flat Earth model. So therefore, he should be getting longer days after the sun sets. And I think that might explain a lot about Ushuaia and these other places that people can't grasp. Like, there's 17 hours of daylight in Ushuaia, but we're not paying attention to the time after the sun sets till it gets completely dark, because I think there's something to be said about that.
Okay, well, honestly, I would have to look at the evidence and...
Okay, but you would say that they should be opposite. There's nothing because of the sun being closer or anything like that that would cause...
All right, so in my head, I'm trying to picture it out, and yet in the summer, in the north, in the solstice, it would get darker quicker as the sun's rising than setting, and it would be the opposite in the south. But you're saying it's the other way round. Okay, right.
Yeah, I'll get you that written out better, and I'll send it to you, and then
I mean,
you can look into it.
Honestly, I can't give you an answer right now. It was something I would have to think about. Off the top of my head, if I was to just think of a few possible explanations, it could be to do with atmospheric particulates. It could be to do with weather conditions. There's a lot of things that can affect how quick sunset happens compared to what it perfectly should if you look at the model. But I don't know. That's just some thoughts straight off the top of my head. I'd love to see the evidence some more.
Yeah, me too. And so if there's people that live in Australia that your fans are yours, one thing they can do just to go and test that right away would be film the sunset tonight, and then as soon as the sun is set, start your clock and see how long it is before you would call it completely dark. You don't see any remnant of the sunlight left. And then keep doing that every week. And as we get closer to December 21st, you should see that number increasing if it matches the north. In the north, if we did it, it would increase as the summer comes closer and closer. We get longer time after the sun sets, and you would expect the same thing in the south. All right, let's move on. Your turn. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, that's an interesting one, and I would very much like to see the evidence for that, so I can model it out and compare it. Oh wow! Thank you very much, whoever just did that amazing super chat. I will get to those at the end. Thank you very much.
Does it say give half to me? I think it says that if you read it closely.
No, it's something about launching the nukes at your house. I'm not sure. Right.
We'll have another conversation about that after. Okay,
oh god, that's a good one. Right. Yeah. So my next point is that, and this is something that I've personally tested during road trips and stuff. Is that globes, any not ones that say they're for entertainment, but actual completely modeled globes like the ones you get for education are accurate, scaled down representations of Earth with accurate sizes of the countries and the distances between them. I've tested this several points across the world during my time in the Navy. I've tested it during road trips traveling across the entirety of the United Kingdom. And as far as I can see, there is no time where the measurements that you could make on a globe would not comport to actual reality when you times it by whatever scale the globe is. So if globes are, and in my evidence personally, I've shown that they are, if globes are accurate representations of the land, how does that work for the flat Earth?
So, I mean, I would say that that's contestable. I don't know how you would make that claim, but so you're saying that there's like no chance that the equator is 23,000 miles. You would say that that's impossible for them to hide simply by, because you're saying that, Google Earth or whatever, if we measured it, comes out to 24,901. So it must be that that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, that it's been measured and shown that that's the case. And from all the different points measured across the Earth, by simple things like people driving distances, by planes and their flight routes. Yeah.
But planes are flown. Their numbers come from the GPS. The numbers come from the ground position of the known globe map. So that we can't. Somebody said one time, "Oh, you could prove flat Earth easily by showing a ground speed of 1,500 miles per hour on these planes or something." It's like, no, we're not saying that they've hidden. Yeah, it's like, no, we're not saying that the land is that the planes actually have to move. They're moving that fast, but over the ground speed, it's never going to show that because the ground speed is based off of the ground distances. So if we're saying those distances are actually longer, how would you show that? Well, that's why I think that there's enough evidence in the South that tells us that that's not true, that the globe is not accurate. Southern plane flights between Sydney and Santiago call for that plane to go about 520 miles per hour, but we know there's a 200 mile per hour jet stream there, meaning that the plane is literally going 300 miles per hour. Then it's getting an additional 200 in jet stream, equating to 510 for its miles per hour to get there. That's insane. No other plane would ever go 300 miles per hour. It would go 500 and take advantage of the 200 mile per hour winds and go 700 miles per hour. So the fact that there's no sea cables in the South is very strange. Why do we not have any sea cables in the South? Why is there no cruises that go from Sydney to South America? There's always an excuse. Oh, nobody wants to cruise that long, blah, blah, blah. They do. But those cruises don't exist because that area of water is much greater than we're told. Now, how would people figure that out? Yeah. How are they going to figure it out? GPS is already set.
So, I mean, the thing is that it does comport with reality. I mean, all right, I've only maybe done 2 different places in the South when I was in the Navy to confirm this. And the way that I confirmed it, right, was, and it's a little convoluted, but when I got on to working with the submarines, part of my training and part of my responsibilities was to be looking after the emergency generators in case of the nuclear reactor not working and we having to use emergency power. And during sea trials in several places around the world, it was my responsibility to put in the exact amount of fuel to go from point A to point B. And those distances that I calculated were based on what the globe says it is. Only one of those was maybe 2 was in the South and 4 were in the Northern Hemisphere. But whenever I did those calculations to get from point A to point B on the known fuel consumption of the subs I was on using the emergency diesel generators, it always worked out exactly as it did. And then the road trips that I've done at several places around the world, especially across the UK, I tested this last time I went down to see my parents. I measured across literally on my globe and saw how many it was in centimeters, and times it by what the scale of the globe said it was, and calculated the miles. And then, obviously taking into account road routes and everything, it matches what it says it should be. So I've never seen any personal evidence that shows that the distances are wrong. Those specific things you said about the flight routes, please send me those details, because I'd like to look into that. Those aren't ones that I've specifically heard before.
Well, I won't send you that. I mean, just the flight is 7,000 miles, right? So 7,000 miles, it takes 14 hours, which means it's going 500 miles per hour. You can just do that math, but they totally leave out the jet streams, which are a known thing. So you can just look into that. Look at the flight Sydney to Santiago. If it takes 14 hours, the plane's going 500 miles per hour, which is weird because there's a 200 mile per hour jet stream down there. There's pretty much constant, and they kind of hide it. They always talk about the North breaking all these records and the North jet streams, but the South is even said to have a greater jet stream, the Southern Circumpolar jet stream. And if you look at like Bob's Winds, that map, I don't know if you've ever seen that site. It used to be on Earth.Null School, and then they took it away from us, but Bob's Winds still has it. And if you look at the winds at about 250 HPA, you'll notice that those winds only exist in the South. So, which again, somebody needs to explain that on the globe. I expect apples, right? I expect that the North would kind of be exactly like the South. I get that there's temperatures are going to be different because of what exists at the North and the South, and that land warms faster than water and things like that. But I think that it's weird. Let's just see if this will show right now. And let's go here. Yeah, so I'm going to show you right now these winds, and then you can just say from there that this is why I don't think it does necessarily match a globe. Let's go with, oh, I keep losing this. There we go, left. All right, so this is just showing you these winds at 70 HPA, which is about 40,000 feet-ish. And you'll notice that we've got these high-speed winds in the South, but we don't have any winds in the North. So this does not jive. If we go to globe instead, it just doesn't make any sense on a globe. Why would this be the case where in the North, calm, cool, collected, we get a little wind going this way? In the South, we've got rip-roaring winds carrying people. And this is why the flight from Santiago to Sydney is much faster. I'm sorry. Sydney to Santiago is much faster than the other way around. So again, this is just weird. Why would the South be different than the North? We're told that they're the same, and yet look at the winds at 40,000 feet, vastly different.
Well, a lot of the weather factors are due to like the temperature of the water and stuff. That actually, how warm the ocean is a big factor driving all the weather and everything. But
driving the winds at 40,000 feet.
The temperature of that will affect everything. The pressure coming from, if the water's colder in a certain part, that's going to change the pressure of the air, which is going to cause wind and stuff. Yeah, the temperature of the ocean and the movements of the ocean are a big driving factor of all of the weather patterns on Earth. But
and I would agree with that. But
I'm just not sure about your claim of there being a constant 200 mile an hour jet stream in the South. From what I know,
they say it goes 150 to 250.
Yeah, from what I understand, it can be as low as like 80 miles an hour and sometimes 250 miles an hour, and I'm sure that they would take into account what the jet streams were on particular days in certain flight routes. I
mean, in this area, it's 120 and 125, 140, 131, 140, 93, 109. Again, I don't know how. Here's the problem with this: is that they give you very little information about the jet streams. It's not like there's a site that you can go to that tells you each level. We just get this one site gives us 250 HPA, which is 32,000 feet, and 70 HPA, which is like 44,000 feet. We don't get to see anything in between there or above that height or below. Anyway, I think that it's something else that should be looked into, because again, why are they hiding the fact that there's this southern jet stream that
I don't know if they're necessarily hiding it. I mean, I knew that there was a southern jet stream, and weather isn't particularly a big thing about
So do you think that this Qantas brand new 747-9 jetliner, Dreamliner, is actually going 300 miles per hour and just not caring about the fact that they could be getting people there significantly faster?
What do you mean they could be getting there faster?
So, like I said, it's 7,000 miles, and they're doing it in 14 hours. So the plane is going 500. So that's how fast planes go without a jet stream. So therefore, the plane is not taking advantage of something that is clearly right there to take advantage of, that we know planes take advantage of every day, pretty much every single flight. So why is this one just saying, nah, because we're in the South, we don't care about getting people there faster. We're just going to go 500. Because if there is a 200-mile-per-hour jet stream that is all the time in the South, then literally we have to believe that plane is going 300 miles per hour. Or you could believe, like we do, that the plane's probably going 550. It's getting an additional 200. It's going 750 times 14 hours, gets us more to about 10,000 miles, which is what we think the distance is. That's certainly closer than 7,000.
Oh, isn't it also to do with what the pressure is at cruising altitude as well? I mean, what's the pressure at 35,000 feet?
It's about 250 HPA. But I don't know how that affects speed or what you're talking about there. I mean,
is that with the pressure band that you're showing there?
Oh, sorry. Right here is that you can do, this 1,000 HPA is the surface, and then 700.
Would you put it to what cruising altitude is? Is that okay?
Well, 250 is about 30,000 feet, and 70 is about 41, or I forgot what it is, 42,000 feet. So it's between these two. So yeah, at 34,000 feet, you do get the north and south kind of having similar patterns. But if we take it to the azimuthal instead, then you get something like this. So you still have these winds in the south at cruising altitude. I mean, this right here is 172. So you got 172 mile per hour wind going from Australia to South America that the plane is literally not using, or else they're just not caring about getting people there any faster. There's 161. There's a 152. So again, even if it is 152, then you have to believe that the plane is going 350, not 500, which is, again, just something that I think you have to suspend your critical thinking if you're going to buy into. For me to believe that this is a globe, I have to suspend my critical thinking about how fast planes go and how they utilize different things. Even though I know planes that I get onto, we're always late taking off, but we always get there on time. Why is that? It's because the flight engineers or the flight planners know what level different winds are going. So if the plane needs to make up 30 minutes flying from New York to LA or whatever, it can do so by putting them at level 37, which happens to have a wind going that way that'll help them make up the time that they've taken off late. This is why all planes pretty much get there on time.
Okay, well, there's more to consider than just simple, this is how fast the plane could go from point A to point B. There'd be a lot of things to consider, like how much fuel they want to use to make, depending on how expensive the seats are. So let's say if they could go 500 miles an hour because they're utilizing the jet stream, so that means they only actually have to use the fuel for going 350 miles an hour. That could, in the long run, make the the flights cheaper for people overall. There's a lot more to consider than just this is how fast you could go if we go full power. If you're on the motorway in your car, you don't stick your foot down and go the maximum speed that your car could go, because that would eat your fuel a lot quicker than just going a sensible speed. I'm not
disagreeing that there is there's always an excuse. You can always find an excuse for why the planes are doing what they're doing. I'm just saying that, to me, you would think that they would take advantage of these winds that we know about that are down there, and yet it doesn't appear that they're really taking advantage of them to any significant level. And yet you'll see things, you look up fastest, plane breaks fastest record. There's a plane that and they always talk about the north. This plane flew from New York to London in 3.5 hours or whatever it is. And the planes end up going like 875 miles per hour. But it's because they're going at Mach plus the speeds of the winds. And they say, okay, it nets 875 ground speed. So they talk about the north a lot, but they don't mention the south unless you look it up and look up the jet streams, and it'll tell you the south circumpolar jet stream is the biggest jet stream on Earth. So again, they don't tell you that the planes in the south broke any records. Why? Because the planes in the south go significantly further than we're told. So we should never expect a plane in the south to ever break a speed record because it's going further. And the same thing is true of like boats. I know you say the distances are the same on your speedometer, but that's really a tough thing you're taking turns. The car's not necessarily going exactly straight. But that guy, and I can't remember his name, Urbe something, who's done around this Antarctic races. He's gone around the Antarctica in a boat, and now he's a flat earther, and his reasons for that are numerous, but one of those is because he thinks that the distances of the south are off, that there's no, I mentioned no undersea cables, but I
wanted to mention the undersea cables.
So real quick, there's a you can look up the record for people sailing in the north versus people in the south, and there's a record for 24 hours, the biggest distance that they've gone in 24 hours. So in the north, that record is 200 miles more than in the south, which is just insane to believe. Why would you ever believe that? But that's the record. Look it up. How far somebody's gone 24 hours in a sailing boat in the south versus the north. How is it not the same? Why would the south be, oh, you can't go fast in the ocean in the south? It just doesn't jive unless what we're saying is true, that the southern ocean is much larger than we've been taught, in which case people aren't really going, they're actually going more distance in time. Therefore, you're never going to break a record because you're going to think you're going, but you're not, right? So it's the same thing as the people who circumnavigate Antarctica. You then go look into it and you find out that the boat was doing 4 knots. Then you go look at the speed record for that type of boat. It's 30 knots. So you're like, wait a second, the person who owns the record for south circumnavigation did 4 knots? It'd be the equivalent of me telling you, hey, some guy just broke the speed record out here on the freeway. And you'd be like, how fast did he go? Oh, he was going 14 miles per hour. You'd be like, what do you mean? Why doesn't somebody just go break the record by going in a car and going 30 miles per hour or 50 miles per hour? And I'd be, well, it's just the way. That's how Antarctica works, that for some reason, every boat that travels around Antarctica ends up doing a knots of 4.
Well, what about the Vanderglobe race every 4 years that you can track by GPS and it doesn't hold up to what you just said? That shows them.
Well, it doesn't, because the GPS is distances that are already set. So this is what I'm saying, is if you calculate how far that boat goes. So let's say it's going around the, what'd you call it? The Vendée Globe?
I can't pronounce it properly.
I think it's Vendée.
Vendée Globe, yeah. But
Yeah,
I mean,
Vendée
the
Globe.
people on the boats record their own speeds and everything as well, and they don't show that they're going
How would they record their speeds? You mean there's a pitot tube that measures the water?
Well, I mean, there's many different ways of measuring your speed. You know, like
How would you do it on a boat?
You can measure how fast you're going compared to the air outside or through the water that you're moving. There's lots
Yeah, I
of
think
different
then
ways to.
there's always
plus,
going to be wind.
dead reckoning positioning and things like that. There's always lots of ways to show how
Yeah,
fast
but dead
you measure
reckoning,
speed.
again, you keep referring to the globe, and if you're going to refer to the globe, then it's not going to be doing anything weird because the globe distances are what they believe they are. So, but what I'm saying is there's a current, number one, that moves east to west, which is the same direction. I'm sorry, the current moves west to east, which is the same direction all these boats always go. Nobody tries to circumnavigate going west because the winds and the current come this way. So if you've got a current that you can't, how would you calculate what the current is? You're going to be being carried by the current, so therefore you could never calculate that. And the only way you would ever know, this is why I've always said, Craig, that GPS was their baby. Once they had GPS in place, the scam is easy, because you could never know that the GPS is wrong because it tells you where you're at. So there might be a little tweaking of the code or something that tells them, okay, this person's really here, and then they just but tell them they're on the globe here. That's what I think GPS is. It's just a global positioning system where you exist on a globe projection.
We don't even have to talk about GPS. I mean, when a lot of boats that do this kind of sailing to measure their speed, they use things like Doppler radars, for instance, to literally bounce a signal off the water to get back to measure how fast they're going. And there's lots of different methods. It's going to be calculated
distance over time, though. Distance over time is going to be done by where are you getting the distance from. So again, if I say that
from your actual, you point it at a position at the water that's like, I don't know, X meters in front of your boat, and you fire the radar signal at the water and then it bounces back, you know how fast radar goes, you know how far that distance that you've sent it is, therefore you can calculate.
You know how
the
far the
that
water that you bounced it off of is?
Yeah, you aim at a certain point in the water that's a certain amount of distance in front of your boat or something like that, or a certain amount of distance off to your port or starboard side. You aim at a particular point in the water, you fire your radar at that point, and then you get a signal back. And through a series of those measurements over time, you can tell how fast you're going. And that's just one of the methods. But also during the Vanderglobe race, they've always got their, because they go around it counterclockwise. So they've always got Antarctica to their right as well as they're going around it, which wouldn't make sense if the Earth was flat.
They don't see Antarctica. They're not even allowed to go below the 60th. So they certainly don't see Antarctica to their right. You'd have to be within 200 miles of Antarctica to see it. So how would you ever see it from a boat?
Well, okay. All right, they can't see Antarctica, but it's technically to their right all the time in the way that they go.
Well, and if you're going around...
But then they go in a way that leads them what would be round Antarctica and then back up towards South America and then back up towards France.
But think of a flat Earth map. The same thing happens. The person is going east, so they're going around the Earth, and Antarctica is always on their right.
But they would have to go a lot further if it wasn't a flat Earth than they actually do.
You're getting my point. So if they're going 60,000 miles instead of 15,000 miles, then you would see issues like in the south, the record would be much slower. And so that's what I'm saying. Okay, let's move
But
on to
they
the next
don't
one.
do. That's the thing. The Van der Globe race, they measure their distance, they measure their speed. They
Yeah,
know
they
how
measure their
far
distance
and how
off the
fast
globe
they've gone.
because they know the track is 14,000 miles.
Irrelevant of what the track is, they can literally measure how far and fast they're going as they're doing
Okay,
it.
I would like to know. And that's good information for me. Show me where,
Yeah.
provide me evidence of what boats use to calculate their speed. If it's not GPS and it's not based on the ground locations. If you're saying there's some way to measure a boat's speed through the water, I didn't even know that that's possible.
Yeah,
But let's move on.
I'll send you. There's a whole bunch of ways to measure it. You use tachometers, which are kind of not completely accurate because it takes into account wind. But simple things like known distances between points as well. You would say how long it's taken to get from here to there. But the most reliable method would be the Doppler radar measurements of the water next to the boat and how fast it is going compared to that. I'll send you more information about that, absolutely. But just one more thing before we move on from this. When you said about there being no undersea cables in the south, that's simply because there's less countries in the south and it makes more sense to have, it's a lot harder to lay a big cable like from one point in the south to the other than it is to just lay it in Europe and have it go round. It's
but the south should get smaller, not larger. So it should be on a glober that.
But there's still more distance between. Yeah, there's still more. Just because of the way the Earth is, there's still more distance between things in the south than there is the north because there's less in the south.
Okay, but I'll just show you this, and this is what I'm talking about. Left side. I keep losing this left. So this is just a picture of some sea cables, but I mean this is awkward because here's a weird thing to me. If I take this map and let's say I use my hands and I grab the right and left side and I twisted it to make it a flat Earth map, so I'm going to kind of circleize everything, right? I wouldn't break any of those undersea cables. They would all remain tied by moving it into a flat Earth map. But if we were to have cables running from Australia to South America or from South America to South Africa or from South Africa to Australia, then if I did try and move it into a flat Earth map, I would snap a cable because they're not long enough to bend that way. So I do think these are the kind of things where it's just another circumstantial evidence thing. You're right. But these cables actually go up and across. And so it's not just like, it should be shorter here on the bottom. Now, again, this is not a globe map. This is a projection. But this should be shorter. So I would expect cables to be running there. They basically have cables that run up to Japan. And look at all these cables that run across between Japan and the United States. And then they drop down.
And it could just be that it's more difficult to lay it in certain places.
Sure.
The topography of the ocean floor might not be suitable for laying the cables in certain areas.
I'm never saying that you can't find excuses. The excuses are easy to make, especially when you have science on your side and when you believe in it's very easy just to say things and people are going to buy it. Why? Because they want the Earth to be a ball. So they just believe it. They're just like, yeah, it must be something. But eventually you'll get to the point where I got where there's too many of those. There's too many of these excuses where everything's like, okay, why can't we do this? Okay, what about, okay. It's like one after another, they just always have some excuse, and the excuses are never good. If we use those excuses, imagine if we just always saw not far enough or something, and every time we did, we just said, oh, that's refraction. You just turn this dial up on Walter Bislin's calculator, and now we can see whatever we want to see. That's what you've done, is you've made it like undebunkable. We can no longer say we see too far, because you guys will go to Walter Bislin's calculator, turn the dial up until you can see the item that we see, and then you're like, see, it's just a lot of refraction.
Yeah. Well, rather than it being excuses, it's reasons, explanations, and in the same way, this isn't really anything that is compelling for the flat Earth. It's just
you'd actually have to have
right?
the explanation, right? You have to have the explanation. You can't just say maybe it's this, maybe it's that, and then when I say that they're just guesses or excuses, then you're like, well, those aren't excuses, those are explanations. Yeah, when you provide me the explanation, it is. But not until then.
Well, yeah, in this particular case, I don't have the exact answer why they did it. I just, off the top of my head, gave you a few reasons that logically it could be. I could look into it more and find out specifically why there is less undersea cables in the south than the north. I don't know the exact answers, but the point is that there is many logical explanations as to why that's the case, and just because it isn't doesn't point me in any one direction or another.
Circumstantial.
For me, it makes sense for there to be less just because of the way the countries are arranged on the globe. It makes sense in my head that that's where they would put them. But I don't know the exact answer. I'm not going to pretend I do. I'm just giving what I thought would be a reasonable explanation.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go to this next one. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to pull this over. I just want to show you one thing. Okay, so next I want to talk about the suppression of flat Earth by YouTube, and why I think that that's an issue. And I don't know if people know this, but you used to be able, when you search YouTube, you would get a number of searches it would show. So, like, say I searched NASCAR race, then it would say 1,107 searches or whatever. That doesn't do that anymore. And the reason that happened is because at a point in 2017, Flat Earth passed Donald Trump. Now, I've heard you say in videos before, when you said that when we said we were being suppressed because Flat Earth started to take off, you were like, no, Flat Earth never took off. It's never been popular, blah, 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 which just isn't true. In fact, it's not popular now as it was before because of what YouTube has done. YouTube has removed the ability for anybody to find any of our videos. And I'm going to show an example of this right now for you. So what I'm going to show you is in your own watch history, okay? Which should
I think
Google
you're still
have any...
showing me the
Yeah,
weather
I'm
map.
pulling up on here real quick. In your own watch history, you should only, should they have the ability to take things out of your watch history? No. But let me show you here. I'm going to pull this over here. We're going to go to Dirt's video first, or Dirt's channel, just because he has a bunch of videos that have flat Earth in them. Now you see this, right? So we're going here and we're just going to grab any video that shows flat Earth. So he's got this GGPS improves flat Earth. So I'm just going to watch it for a second. So it adds it to my history. Then we're going to go to We Are Not Moving Flat Earth. There's another one. Okay, we'll grab that one. And then we'll grab one more that says flat Earth here. Oops, sorry. Videos. And testing the globe, 100% proof the Earth is a globe. How far can we see in flat Earth? Okay, this one. Okay, so we just added 3 things to our watch history. So now we're going to go here. We're going to go to history. And you'll notice that we've got those 3 videos that we just watched right here, right? Yeah. So if we then search here for the words flat Earth, there would be no reason why it would take those videos out. And when you do, what it does is it only leaves you with the debunking videos. Okay, so now in my watch history, it is removed any video that has the word flat Earth in it, unless it's a debunking video. How in the F is that? So they've got somebody then who marks every video as pro flat Earth or anti flat Earth and removes those videos from your search history and anybody's search, from what I can tell. So you'll have to explain to me, why can that be that now we just got every Dave McKeegan video in here? Anything that's a debunked video.
Well, Dave
is
McKeegan's
going
awesome,
to here.
but honestly, I've
awesome.
no fucking idea what YouTube are doing with their searches, right? What you've just shown, Jaren, is not just a flat Earth problem, okay?
Show me it on one other item. Show me one other thing.
Well, okay. So a lot of my YouTube search history at the moment is about gym stuff, right? Because I'm at the gym 6 days a week. I'm working hard and improving myself. So a lot of the videos I'm watching are about how to improve form, doing weightlifting and stuff like that, right? But so many times I'll know I've seen a video that should be in my search history, and I'll go into my history and I'll search for a word that was specific to that video, and I can't find it. All right. And then I will even just search through every video that I've watched, and half of the videos that I know I've watched aren't in my search history. All right. And to be honest, I just think that's YouTube being crap. All right. Now, I'm not going to deny that YouTube did not promote Flat Earth. YouTube as a whole decided to not put into the algorithm the same way anything that they considered misinformation. So that meant flat Earth, that meant COVID stuff, that meant moon landing stuff, that meant Bigfoot, any videos that were considered to be something that was misinformation wasn't promoted as highly in the algorithm as other things. And the reason that YouTube did that is because they can do what the fuck they want with their platform. But I am never going to deny that it became harder to find certain flat Earth videos. What I do full time is this, debunking flat Earth, and it became difficult to find videos that I knew that I'd seen before. And that is because YouTube were not promoting them in the same way, and they are still not. However, I don't think that means that all flat Earth videos are just simply suppressed and hidden over globe channels, right? Look at Mitchell from Australia's recent video, which in 3 weeks got about 115,000 views. The last time I had a video of 100,000 views was maybe 18 months ago. So there is situations where flat Earth videos would do better than globe Earth videos, But the big answer behind this is that I haven't a fucking clue what YouTube are doing. I hate their search function. It is practically useless to be able to find the things that you want. The history search, it never works the way that you want it to. In fact, lately, and you probably noticed this as well, Jaren, when you go onto your bloody YouTube homepage, it doesn't show you the videos that you want to see. It will show you a bunch of shorts, and then it will show you maybe 1 or 2 videos that might be interested, and then it'd be something like things that we think you might like,
Right.
that you've got no interest in, right? YouTube do not know what they're doing with search. It is fucking
but here's the thing.
terrible.
All right, if you're going to say, though, that Flat Earth isn't the only one, then what I want from you in the next week or something, find one thing that does the same thing. So what I just did right now when you said COVID is I went and watched 3 videos that say COVID in the title. Then I came back to my watch history and I searched for COVID, and those 3 videos are still here. So if you're going to claim that Flat Earth isn't the only thing, then find me one thing, which should be easy. Find a video that's on YouTube, go watch it, then take something out of the title and put it in your search for your history and see if it shows up. If
I
you
do
can
that with
find
some of my gym videos, because that is something that I have personally experienced recently several times.
Okay,
is
just make sure that it's in the title.
There's a guy I watch called Tyler Fitpath, right? And he gives really, really good advice on how to have correct form when you're doing bicep curls and everything like that. And I was watching a video about, he was talking about the extension, how it's better to put pressure on when you're going down. And I wanted to watch about the form that he was talking about. And I knew I'd seen that video. I knew it was about bicep curls. I knew it was about extensions. I knew it was from Tyler. So I went into my search history and I typed those things in several different combinations, and that video just did not appear. I don't know why it happens, particularly with Flat Earth like that. Again, it could be because YouTube don't put it in the algorithm in the same way. But, at the end of the day, YouTube is a private platform run by a bunch of suits. And
Sure, but they
we
let
are
everything
all
else,
at the
there's
whim
a-
of them,
Sure, but there's Bigfoot videos. So here's what I'm trying to say, just so you recognize this, that if YouTube is doing that, I hope you recognize that all flat earthers do not look at that as, oh, YouTube's trying to protect us by not giving us misinformation. It looks like a direct result of the flat earth being true and them trying to hide it. So that's number one. That they would have to recognize. It's the same thing with science not addressing the flat earth. Their excuse is, oh, we don't want to give it any time. We don't want to give it any credence or anything like that. Great. But when you do want to give something time and credence is when you debunk it. So the fact that they refuse to debunk it, which would make it go away, and instead say, oh, we don't feel like dealing with it because we'll give it too much attention. Well, hopefully you recognize that all of us flat earthers, nobody sees it that way. We all look at it.
What do you mean they refuse to debunk it? Who's refusing?
Neil deGrasse Tyson, all these guys that won't debate anybody, they won't do any. Why hasn't there been a show? It's been 8 years. Why hasn't there been a show on Fox, proving the curvature of the Earth? Why is the only one we got Stephen Hawking faking experiments? I mean, where's the actual proof? I can't believe science would continue just to let flat Earth grow. If you don't know, flat Earth is growing. You can say it's growing slow if you want. It's growing. Why? Well, it's the same reason that because people are looking into it and seeing that the globe does not have the kind of evidence that we were taught it did. That's all.
Or is it to do with not understanding a lot of things?
Can be a not understanding, but when we came out asking these questions, it's not like people filled in our misunderstanding. They made excuses. That's all.
No.
So it's not really...
I'd like to think that I try to fill in misunderstandings where I can. If I don't know the answer to something, then I'll straight up say I don't know the answer.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens when you come back from this, if you have a couple things you find or whatever. Because, I tend to think that if that is true, then you will provide explanations for these things and not just gloss over them and let them go. Because just so you guys know, why is Flat Earth growing? It's growing because the globe is doing a terrible job. Do you know there's some guy, Mindshock, that he reviews debates, and he actually thinks Flat Earth is a psyop. The reason is because of how bad the globe is at proving itself. He's like, where are the scientists? Where are the physicists? Where are the people that should be able to put this to bed? Why are they leaving it up to you and McToon and Simon Dan, who more are doing like a comedy skit? It's not really like science.
I find it funny. No,
I'm not saying it's not funny, but I'm saying that it's more of comedy. It's not debunking. Nobody's going to hold Simon Dan up to some sort of scientific scrutiny.
But it's the same as Simon Dan. Simon Dan won't debate Flat Earth, and his reason is that he doesn't feel like debating established facts. And I feel it's the same with Neil deGrasse Tyson and stuff, right? But I kind of feel it's the same from our side, right? Why hasn't Eric Dubay ever actually done a debate? when he's constantly going on
Right,
about.
he was scheduled to do one with Neil deGrasse, and Neil deGrasse backed out.
Apparently that wasn't true. Neil deGrasse Tyson never agreed to do a debate. I've never found any evidence that he actually said, yes, I will debate Eric Dubay. If anyone can show me evidence that was the case, I'll admit I'm wrong. But from all my research, that was never the case, and it was just Eric Dubay lying.
I'm wondering where I'm getting that from. So wait, so you're saying that he didn't
No.
Joe Rogan say when Neil deGrasse was there that he could get Eric Dubay in for a debate, and then Neil deGrasse is like, okay, and so then Neil started. Or that never happened. You're saying?
No, as far as I'm aware, Neil deGrasse Tyson has never said he will debate a flat earther. He's always, as far as I'm aware, and I've seen him answer the question several times, would you debate someone that you know, like this? And he's just said, no, why would I do that? I've no need to. We know the Earth's a globe. So, and if I can see that footage, then I'll straight up admit that I'm wrong. But
Okay.
as far
And
as
if somebody
I'm
knows
aware,
where that is, I would like
yeah.
that provided as well, because I thought that was a fact. But if it's not, if people are just saying that he was supposed to debate him, then I would like to know that. But I think that I just hope science knows that what they're doing is not the method to get rid of flat Earth. By ignoring it and saying, "Oh, we just don't want to give it credence," it's going to continue to grow because they're doing a poor job at debunking it.
I see. I don't think science cares. Is the honest answer? You know,
That's fine.
You know, science just wants to focus on doing what science does, and that's increasing our knowledge and understanding. And science doesn't care if some people don't understand it. You know.
So do you think that students in school today are the same as they were 15 years ago in terms of questioning the nature of Earth, or do you think that today probably more students are raising their hand,
I
asking
don't know. They're too
questions?
busy vaping, as far as I'm aware. I'm not even kidding. I am not kidding. I went to my school's son last week because there'd been some issues. He's got autism. I went to my son's school.
Oh, okay.
Did I say my school's son? My son's school the other day.
I was confused.
Because he's got autism, and they were having some issues at the school with not being able to do it properly. So I had a meeting to go in and speak to them. And in the school playground, got out my car, and I literally had to walk through clouds of vape to get to the reception. I'm like, how is this happening in a high school playground? It just that's just blowing my mind that's allowed to happen. But yeah, no, kids are different now. Kids do question more things, and I hope that schools have the ability to answer those questions. Schools don't always answer all questions. People don't always accept the answers that schools give them. But the long and short of it is science really, really doesn't care about flat earthers. It's only people like me and Toon that actually focus on this because, you know, we're not scientists doing important science work, so we've got time to.
Okay, you might just notice that in the future coming is what's going to happen is you're going to have this falling away from the mainstream because they keep dropping the ball. They keep lying to people. They keep putting up fake stories in the news. And so it just tends to lean towards, you can say like, oh, they don't care about flat Earth. That's great. They don't care about it. It's going to come knocking at their door real quick. The sooner they debunk it, the better, because they're not going to be very happy when it gets further. And you're going to have that tipping point. That tipping point is close to where there's so many people that now they're going to have an impossible time stopping it. And then we might already be there, to be honest. So, okay, you're up next.
Right. Where was I? Right. Gravity is a big contention, and again, I don't want to strawman you. So before I ask this question, could you just give me what your position on gravity is?
Yeah, I think it's mostly relative density, if you want, what your density is compared to the medium that you're in. But I do believe there is electrostatics involved in everything, and therefore I think that the electrostatics sets the down direction, and then everything sorts itself out through density and buoyancy.
Right.
I don't think that there's any force. If I hold this pencil up, the only force that's in it, the only thing that I feel in it is its own weight, and its weight is what's taking it down. So I don't feel like there's something pulling, causing the weight, which is what you guys believe, that weight comes from the force of gravity. But
well, the acceleration due to gravity, yeah, because weight is a force, so weight is mass times the acceleration due to gravity, the same as F equals ma. But right, so my question is, how do you explain gravity as we understand it being used in real world industries? For instance, finding mineral deposits underground, being able to search for minerals and oils that you wouldn't be able to find in other ways because of the change in density, and submarines,
Right, so isn't that what they're looking
military
at?
submarines use gravity to actually navigate by there being varying densities and forces around them because of the distribution of mass, which can be picked up in a change of the gravitational acceleration. So when gravity, as we understand it, is used in industry and military navigation, does that not make you think that we might be right?
No, because I don't think what you're talking about is a force pulling things down. Like the drop rate of something is still the same whether there's gravity or not. You guys need, and here's my problem with gravity overall, that it seems like it's one of those things that science cannot let go of when it goes in the face of everything I've heard from Richard Feynman and these other guys who say if you've got theories that don't match observations, you get rid of the theory. But there's one theory that they will never let go of, and that theory is gravity. Because they need things to make spheres. And so there's no other mechanism by which we would have spheres in the sky and spheres all over. So they have to hold on to gravity. So to me, that's not, but just because things drop at different rates could mean because of the atmospheric pressure, it could be a lot of different variables that don't have to be the force of something pulling to the center. That doesn't even really make sense to me. I mean, so if we went to the center of the Earth, there would be no force there?
If we were at the center of the Earth, the net sum of forces would be zero because gravity would be pulling equally outwards in all directions. But first off, Feynman said if it doesn't agree with experimentation, then it's wrong. And experiments around gravity show that gravity is what we say it is. Gravity is probably the most empirically measured thing in science. And our knowledge around gravity has led us to the development of things like gravity gradient navigation that billion-dollar submarines use to navigate undersea. So I don't know if you've heard
undersea, but undersea would have different densities which we could detect. So that doesn't translate to there must be a force causing those density changes.
Well, it's the way that the systems work. So gravity gradient navigation it is done in a very specific way. There's a series of accelerometers, very sensitive accelerometers in a network around the submarine, okay, pointing in all different directions, okay, and they're basically strings with a weight on the end, okay. Now, what happens is as the submarine is going through the water, if, for instance, there is a large underwater mountain in front of the submarine, that means that there is more mass in front of the submarine, and that mass causes a force that will create an acceleration on the accelerometer moving towards that mass. And obviously, because the accelerometers at the front of the submarine will have more of an acceleration towards that mass, they're able to determine that that's the shape of something in front of them, and shit, let's not crash into that big underwater mountain. And the way that it works, there's nothing in between. There's no way it can see what the density is or measure the density. It's just an accelerometer that is being accelerated in a direction due to the force of gravity.
So the boat is moving through the water. Yeah. There's some strings with weights on them, and then the weights will move a certain direction because there's more of a mound there.
Yeah, basically, where there is more mass, there will be slightly more gravity. So, if there's a big bit of land under the water, a mountain or something, that will have more mass than where there isn't a mountain. So the accelerometers will move more towards that underwater mountain than away from it. And that allows us to extrapolate that data and in real time map the surface of the ocean floor so that we don't crash when we're sailing submarines.
Okay, so even where there's a dip in the ocean, there might be more mass there.
Yeah. It will show us that there's a dip because that if we were going over like a ravine, all of a sudden there would be less of an acceleration because there's no mass there. All of a sudden there's a big ravine.
Yeah, but you're describing it. You're making it sound like the top layer of the Earth, which would be a mile deep. You're saying that the changes there affect but what about everything underneath it? There's another 3,999 miles.
So the entire accelerometer network is feeling that downward pull from the entire Earth. So what it can now do is sense any variations that are closer to it. Because obviously the entire Earth is underneath it, but there's going to be parts of that Earth that are closer to it than others. which means that because gravity is something that works, the square, it's inversely proportional to the distance, the square root of the distance between them. Which means that if you are closer to the surface of the Earth, there will be more of a gravitational acceleration than if you're further away from it. So if there's underwater ground that's closer to the submarine than other, there's more of an attraction that it will sense, and you can map out that data in real time, and boom, there is in real time the surface of the ocean in the submarine. And it's very, very handy because the purpose of military submarines is what? Is to be stealthy. And the normal ways that submarines would navigate is using sonar and things like that, but you can't use that if you want to be stealthy because other people can see it. So this gravity gradient navigation is, extremely good for being stealthy.
All right, it made sense up until the point where you said if there was a ravine that it would show, because you can't make that assumption that, just because there's a ravine, we'll actually see, because what if it's more dense under the ravine? So then it's going to show more gravity. So
because it's to do with distance. So if you go over a ravine, all of a sudden there's nothing underneath the submarine, right?
There might be more mass deeper down.
Yeah, and all that mass deeper down is further away than the things that are closer. So because all of a sudden there is something that isn't as close to that submarine, there will be less of an acceleration, and you can map that out. When you're closer,
and you call that what?
something,
Gravity gradient accelerometers?
Gravity gradient navigation. Or gravity anomaly navigation is another term that is used. I can send you some very interesting scientific papers around it.
Sure.
It's something that I've worked with as they were developing it recently when I was in the Navy. It's something that is known as something that works. And it's the same kind of method that they use for detecting underground minerals like oil and other things using, nowadays they use satellites, but back in the day they would just use the same kind of thing, like very sensitive accelerometers near the surface of the ground, and they would go, oh look, this bit there's more density here, so there's some oil there, and then they'd find the oil.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I just doubt whether it's gravity that's causing these things, or if we're just able to detect changes in the topography because of more mass being where there's a mountain and less mass being where there's a ravine.
But that's what gravity is, right? Is the fact that mass creates this force that we can measure the acceleration of.
Okay, but if you're like you said, using sonar, well, you can use sonar, but then that has nothing to do with gravity.
No, exactly. Which is why the gravity gradient or gravity anomaly navigation is so much better than sonar, because sonar will give away your position, but this is a completely silent, stealthy way to pilot a submarine.
Sounds good. I'll look into that for sure. It's my second thing here. Okay, I believe who is up? Who is that? Me?
You're up now.
Okay. Let me get back here. All right. So here. So mirror flashes, we're going to say that to last.
Yep.
All right. So curve calculator. The going thing that's being said all the time is that the 8 inches per mile squared is not the correct formula. Is it the correct formula for drop over a certain distance, up to say 1,000 miles?
Right. Well, the important thing to understand about the 8 inch per mile squared formula is that it doesn't take into account any distance above the surface of the Earth, right? So anytime you're using that formula, you have to assume that it's being used from exactly the surface of the Earth.
Well, and it depends on the test. Because like my test, when I did the laser test, I can use my sight line as a 0, even though I'm not on the surface. It would still be, I don't need to add viewer height.
Yeah, but if you're to measure drop from a certain point, if you were to use it that way, the only way that could work is if you're taking that 8 inch per mile squared point from exactly the surface of the Earth, and then having a tangent straight out, and then over that distance you could say, right, well, at the exact surface of the Earth, from that point there should be this amount of drop, and then this amount of drop, and then this amount of drop. And as far as I'm aware, right, and I'll admit that I've been wrong about this in the past and been like, no, you can't use that, it's a parabolic equation, blah, blah, blah. All that is the wrong way to think about it. It can be used in a correct way. It could be used as a chord measurement, and it's going to be accurate. It could be used from the surface of the Earth, but not if you're above the surface of the Earth, and it can be accurate. It can be accurate, but it's got to be used in the right way. Any measurement that is taken that you are above the surface of the Earth, you have to take that into account, or you're not going to get the correct figures at all.
Not any, because again, if you think of the test that we wanted to do before we found out that the laser doesn't hold a good beam, but if you're taking 3 panels and you're shooting a laser through all 3, trying to hit a backboard and seeing how much drop there is, the laser itself is the bottom of the is considered the baseline. So we're actually looking for drop from the laser, so we don't take viewer height into effect. It doesn't matter if I'm 100 feet high or if I'm 10 feet high, as long as I'm shooting through holes that are equally high. So
what you're doing is you're effectively you're trying to move the surface of the Earth up, and in that experiment, mentally,
in that
right?
in that experiment, that's what you would describe it. But I do see what you're saying. A lot of people will say, I could see that item over there, and I shouldn't because there's 10 miles here, and that means there's 66 feet of drop.
Yeah.
And then they said, but that building's only so high. But yes, you do have to take into account your height. And I think that one of the best calculators is the Metabunk curve calculator, because there's so much detail in there that you can get lots of different numbers out of it. But again, remember, they're going to add the standard refraction. They're going to do all those things. So there is more that goes into it. But I do have a question as to why is it that when we put in a distance on the Metabunk curve calculator, because I don't know if people know this, since everybody wants to give Flat Earth a hard time for using the wrong equation, why is it that we get 3 different equations with 3 different answers on the globe? So for instance, we've got the 3 things that he gives us is, let me find it here. So we get like the, okay, is that a different site that I'm thinking of? Where? Oh yeah, this one. So hidden is the amount of distance, then there's distance 2 is often used for large distances. Then there's the hidden 3. So there's like R over cosine. There's a whole equation here that comes out to, by the way, I did 10 feet of curve. I'm sorry, 10 miles and a 6 feet observer height. And then there's these 3 results. One is 392 inches. Well, they're all 392. I lied. 392, 392, and 392. But if you go bigger than that, if you start getting out to 100 miles, then they vastly differ. But I'm just wondering, why would that be? So for instance, this is hidden. Distance 2 is large distances. Hidden 3 is, it says all 3 are essentially the same for distances under 100 miles. So why do we have 3 different equations for the globe to figure out the distance hidden? I think this is why
I'm not entirely sure. I think it's just different ways of doing it, taking different things into account. I would have to look at the specific equations to answer that for you. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, so if you go to metabunk.org/curve, and you'll see that there's a bunch of equations down there. They're all different, and at 100 miles, they're pretty close. One is 6273 feet, one is 6275 feet, one is 6276 feet, and then if we take the 8 inches per mile squared would be 8 times 100 times 100 times 100, which then divide that by 12 equals 6,666. So 6276, 6275. Oh yeah, I know what I'm doing wrong. Let me take out the viewer height just so we can get back to, I want to see how close it is to the 8 inches per mile squared. So then they have 6667, 6670, and 6670. So here's the weird thing, is that the 8 inches per mile squared actually is the least curve. So people tend to think like, oh, you're way off because you're using the wrong equation. Well, it actually favors the globe. The globe math tells me 6667, 6670, and 6670.5, yet the 8 inches per mile squared says 6666. So again, it's actually the 8 inches per mile squared undercuts, favors the globe. Basically.
Honestly, the best thing that you could do, Jaren, is to chuck McWest an email and ask him, because I couldn't answer that for you. And McWest always answers emails whenever I've messaged him. Did you know McWest was the person that programmed Tony Hawk?
I think I did know that. That's where he got rich, right?
I fucking hate
that's why he
him.
doesn't have a
Have
job.
you any idea how much of my childhood I lost to that guy?
No, I didn't play that game. Like, also, you sent a picture today in our conversation of, what did you say it was, Star Trek or Star Wars?
That was Star Wars. Roger. Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what the movie that's from. I've never watched any of that stuff.
I mean, if you're going to watch Star Wars, just don't watch the recent sequel trilogy. It's fucking awful. But if you like a movie about trade negotiations, then episode 1 should be fun.
Okay. I believe we are on to... Wait, what do we have left? Okay. You have 2 left, or I'm confused where we're at?
Yeah. So, I've got 2 left. Obviously,
Okay.
the mirror flashes, but the one other.
Okay.
So, the LIGO installations are something that I like to bring up, and specifically the way that they are constructed and what the implications of that are. So, the LIGO installations are obviously supposed to be gravity wave detectors, and the way that they do that is by having two very long arms that fire lasers backwards and forwards, and it can detect any disturbances in the fabric of space-time. But that's not important. But what's important is that the lasers that firing have to be completely flat and straight, no curve in them at all. And so they're in these massive tubes that are vacuums, and as they're so long, the arms are so long, what has happened is during construction is that even though they're parallel with the surface of the Earth at one point, like at the start where the beginning of the installation is, at the end of the arms, because the arms are so long and they have to be completely straight and flat, they actually form a tangent to the Earth and start moving away from the surface of the Earth. So much so that the most recent LIGO installation, it took so long to get right because they had to do precision pouring of cement to make sure that it was completely flat and not following the curve of the Earth. So it isn't the fact that there's a building that actually had to take the curve of the Earth into account evidence that the Earth isn't flat.
Okay. So there's questions now about whether LIGO actually discovered anything. I don't know if you know that, but
I mean, I'm aware of the conversation. Whether it discovered anything or not is kind of irrelevant to the conversation. It's more about what it is and how it's set up and what that shows. Okay.
And the claim that they make of how much of a movement in the string they can detect, do you know what that amount is?
No, I don't know the exact.
I mean, I believe they say it's like 1/200th of a proton or something, which is just insane. I mean, it's like basically many times less than like I don't know how many times less than a hair, but it's something like 1,000 or 1,000,000 times.
It's very small, yeah. But, again, I mean, that actual side of what it's doing and what it's measuring, it isn't important to the point. The point is that the way that it was constructed had to take into account the surface of the Earth.
Okay, so here's my problem with that. Why is it then that when we see lasers doing things over water, your guys' explanation for that is the laser bends with the curvature of the Earth? But now you're saying laser light is so straight that we're able to shoot them across, and because of the change in the elevation of the laser, we're able to determine things when just before you guys say all the time that the laser is actually curving with the Earth. Light actually bends with the Earth.
Okay, so the laser inside the LIGO installations are inside a vacuum. Obviously, refraction only happens when you're in a medium like the atmosphere. So within the
so it's not gravity that bends light. It's only
gravity absolutely can bend light on a large scale. I mean, the mass of the Earth would bend light very, less than we could ever detect. It's things like stars that are much larger that that we notice the bending of light due to gravity, but that's more. The light isn't bending, the space time is. Again, that's another conversation. But it's the lasers are inside a vacuum within the LIGO installation. When you're doing laser tests over the surface of the Earth, they're going through a medium. So, there is going to be refraction. Within the LIGO installation, there is no refraction.
So I actually didn't know. So you're saying that if they're ever talking about a laser bending with the curvature of the Earth, they're never saying that's because of gravity. They're saying it's always refraction? Because it's just weird that it always lines up kind of perfectly with the curvature of the Earth.
Well, it doesn't always line up perfectly with the curvature, because you there is certain distances where you can't see it, but the refraction allows you to see further than the pure geometry of the Earth would suggest.
Okay. Even though, I mean, there's a whole argument about that. I mean, refraction should really, if it's a certain wavelength of light that's causing it, we should see less, not more. But anyway, so you're saying with a laser, then if I were to thread the needle between those three panels at the canal that I did, you're saying that the only explanation that somebody might give for why I was able to thread those three holes would be because refraction is causing the beam to bend perfectly with the shape of the Earth.
Yeah, no one should ever say that it's due to gravity. Have people been saying that to you?
I can't say that I know. I wouldn't be able to give you a name of who said that, but I think that's kind of what I assumed, because at least gravity is somewhat of a constant, so then I could understand that excuse, but I don't understand the refraction excuse.
Thank you guys, and a stupid amount of support in the chat. Thank you very much. Sorry, Darren. So
I don't see mine. I got an equal amount. I think people are matching your. Probably not. I don't know.
The argument on our side for why we can see lasers is refraction. It's not gravity. But again, for this particular point, that's not the important thing. The important thing is that the structure of the LIGO installations, the arms that are like 2 kilometers long, they literally rise, away from the surface of the Earth. And a lot of them are done next to, say, streams and stuff that, water, we know is a level thing. Yet the LIGO installation will rise away from the surface of the Earth at the end of the arms, showing that if you have something that's perfectly straight and really long, it deviates away from the curve of the Earth.
So what I would really like is I would love for, and I say science giving it a body, but if academia or science were, why don't we build something on the Earth in one of these big empty states that does just show that? Because it seems like over a mile or two, at least 3, 3 miles, you're now at 6 feet, 4 miles, you're at 10. You think they'd be able to show something by constructing it perfectly level line, showing that it deviates from the Earth, something that we could go out and actually verify, right? So we don't trust this thing. I can drive there, I can use my tape measure, I can pull it out, and I can say, you know what, it does appear that the Earth is curved. They don't even have anything like that, which is weird.
The longer and longer you get, the harder that becomes, because you have to take into account, the forces acting on the thing that you're building, the strength of the materials and everything.
But you think that it's possible at LIGO, but it's just not possible elsewhere.
No, I'd say it would be possible. Let's say if you were to get a 2 kilometer long, perfectly straight tube and filled it with water, right? Then it would show, if the Earth is a globe, that the water would pool at one end compared to the other. But the problem is, again, getting the material to do that. The LIGO installations, they're billions of dollars, to actually construct them, to make them.
And
the way they are.
Where did that money come from?
I don't really know who funded the LIGO installations. There's some in Italy. There's some in
but it's taxes,
Norway.
right?
There's
people.
Not always. I don't think the LIGO is a government installation. I think some of them are private. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure, right?
Okay.
But it's a very expensive thing to do. And they're trying to find out if gravity waves, if they can detect them, and that's why they spent the money. I don't think they would go and spend billions of dollars to just prove that the Earth is a globe, when
we're not talking
science
about
already shows that that's the case. If
it would probably cost $1 million to build something that would work, and NASA gets 80 million.
Don't you have a guy called Flat Earth Millionaire?
Yes, we do.
Wow,
but he doesn't have $80 million every day, I promise. So $80 million a day tells me, could NASA afford to give up one of those 80 to shut flat earthers up and prove and show?
But NASA are aeronautics and space. They don't have anything to do with the ground.
Well, then they can get Noah to do it, or somebody does. I don't know. It's just weird to me. Again, these things that you would think, it's like the South Pole cameras. When I went looking for South Pole footage of a 24-hour sun, they have a whole page. Here's all of our South Pole webcams, and every single one of them never shows a complete day. They all show 12 hours and it resets. 12 hours and it's like,
the one on Tune's website shows 24 hours.
I'm talking about the website, the South Pole website. That
I know the website doesn't. I've looked at that as well, and I couldn't find one that was full 24 hours. So
isn't that weird? If you have a South Pole site, you're Antarctica, and I think it's run by Australia or something, but whatever.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why they didn't do it, to be honest. Why they didn't show, but I know those videos do exist outside of that website. Like the one on Tune's website, I think is 5 full days without a cut.
I just find it weird. In 2015, when we started this, there was no videos, and that's weird. That once we started talking about flat Earth, now videos are coming forward, but hopefully people see where that's a little funny. Seems like
someone in my chat tells me that LIGO was funded by the U.S. National Science Fund.
Right, which is tax money, right?
I have no idea. It might be. I don't know.
Okay, maybe they can come back and tell us that. But anyway, my point is they always give us this excuse that they've got all this important stuff to do, but they don't really care about the people. Everybody who works at NASA is paid for by me. That's, whether you want to say that or not, it's my money. And so I do feel like I should get a say somewhat, or I should get to opt out of donating to NASA.
Well,
I don't want,
technically, you do get a say by who you vote for, right?
Well, we know how that goes. I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to get into politics, but I suppose that is the way that you guys get your say, is by choosing who's in charge of the government. And
okay, so you're saying if I get everybody in the United States to say that we want a camera on the moon, I guarantee they don't do it. So this is what I'm saying.
But if you had a candidate that said they put a camera on the moon and you all voted for him, then that would happen. But
yeah, I'm not a believer in
a lot. I don't know a lot about politics. I just know that it's fucking horrible and useless, and all politicians are just mostly liars. So,
Yes.
you know,
And I always tell my audience that they have to lie. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
should recognize that, because if you took a poll and 70% of the country
have you
believes
heard
in
about the
vaccine-
SNP in Scotland?
No.
The Scottish National Party, who've been running Scotland for years, they have driven this place into the ground because they constantly lie about the amount of money they've got. And it turns out that they're not only lying, but they've just been completely like falsifying records and stuff for years.
Yeah.
And one of them had to, well, in fact, 2 people were arrested over it recently. Who was the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, and her husband have both been arrested because there's really dodgy shit with the SNP. And these are the people that have been running my country, you know? So, I'm behind you with anger at governments, because I think governments fucking lie all the time, right?
Let me give an example of that, though, real quick. With the FOIA requests, people, this is where they give you a false sense of like you have some sort of control. So they tell everybody, oh, you can now do a FOIA request, right? So when I did my FOIA request for a NASA spacewalk, because number one, well, it was actually a Russian spacewalk, is all I could find was this one little clip. It was an advertisement for them for some golf company, and the guy hits a golf ball off the ISS ledge. And I'm like, it looked really bad, to the point where I was like, where's the rest of this? So I went looking, could not find it. So I reach out to NASA for a FOIA request. Number one thing, they charged me $1,800. And number two thing, it ended up taking about 7
freedom of
months.
information costs money. I didn't realize that.
Yep. Yeah, anytime that they have to do anything outside of their normal work. So for instance, in this
Right, I
case,
see.
they told me, oh, that is, it's on magnetic tape or something, which is just stupid, because it's like, it's only in the year 2005. Why isn't it digital? But anyway, so they took like 8 months to get it to me. And then when I got it, it was all empty footage of a camera from outside the ISS. And I was like, well, where's all the footage? Like, oh, well, they weren't on the camera most of the time. And so they just have camera shots of empty, which could be any day. Could be any day. There's nothing there. So what I want to point out to people, though, is they should just recognize that imagine if the government gave me that luxury of them telling me, coming to my door and say, hey, Jaron, we're going to look into your finances. We want to see what you've been up to. And I said, okay. And then I said, come back in 7 months. And they're like, okay. And then in that 7 months, I just clean up a bunch of shit, fake a bunch of documents. And then they come back and I'm like, all right, here you go. And they're like, oh, I guess you've been on the up and up. That's the equivalent of what goes on with FOIA, is that they get so much time and there's no accountability. So they could literally, let's say that spacewalk was faked or something, they could go there and destroy all the footage. So we're actually, by doing FOIA requests, we're actually telling the government what we're doubting them about and then giving them time to correct it. So they give you the false facade of, oh, the FOIA, and you're going to find out all this stuff. That's why anytime I hear FOIA request information came out about something, I doubt it, because I'm like, then they let that information out. The agency that you asked for it literally saw it and said, okay, here you go. So it's not going to be anything catastrophic. It's not like you're going to find something that says 9/11 was something or something, because that would be catastrophic to the government. So we should recognize that the government's never going to give up information on themselves that puts them out of power. So anyway, if the FOIA request, to me, that was a sad case, because it made me stop wanting to request. What am I going to do? So now I request the FOIA thing, and knowing I'm giving you time, what should really happen is I should be able to show up at NASA and say, I want this spacewalk, and they should have to go get it.
Why did you ask NASA for video of a Russian spacewalk, though? Shouldn't Russia be dealing with that?
Well, yeah, but NASA has the cameras on the ISS, and they use all those cameras. So I get it. I mean, I should have to ask Russia if I'm not allowed to do that.
Russia had different cameras. I mean, I know that
that's their excuse. That's their excuse. I'm not saying, and I never
that's
said,
just a thought. Maybe Russia had a different view or something. I'm not sure, but
correct. That's what they say, that they were repairing something on the Russian side, so the American cameras didn't catch it. So anyway, but just saying, that to me is a funny business where, and the reason I asked is because it's a terrible looking footage of a guy hitting a golf ball. And it just looks so bad. I'm like, where's the rest of this? I wanted to see the rest of it. Does it all look this bad? Well, there's no such thing. It's just kind of gone from the annals of history, which is weird. But all right, so I'm on my second last one. Right?
Yeah. Look into LIGO and the way it was constructed.
We'll do that.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we're on to mirror flashes, really. And
no,
do you
I
have
got
another
one more,
one?
I think.
Oh yeah, you do. Right, yeah, you do. Yeah.
And then we'll go to mirror flashes. And I think mine was on. Oh yeah. So I just wanted an explanation for gas in space, because this is something I think there's more like this, that just things I've missed. And I'm like, wait a second, I just need an explanation for it. So is this true? My assumption about, so if we take a helium balloon, have you launched any balloons yourself? Have you ever done a?
No, I've never done that. I'm planning to do one next year in spring.
Okay. I think it'd be cool if we did there should be a day where everybody does it. Because
That's something I've actually put forward
Yeah.
to a few. Is it'd be a good idea if we got a few people around the world, flat Earth and globe Earth, to at
Yeah.
the same time release weather balloons. I think that would be a good idea.
I think it'd be awesome. And then now you've got 20 different pieces of footage where you can kind of piece them together, see what's going on. So if we take a helium balloon up, and we know what happens, right? The balloon starts to expand. The helium inside of it expands because why?
Because the pressure gets lower outside of the balloon.
Okay, so then
which allows the balloon to expand.
Right, and it can't hold it in anymore, and eventually the balloon pops and the gas goes everywhere, right?
Once the structural integrity of the balloon reaches its limit, it breaks.
Okay, so is the theory then that if I put up a bigger balloon, an even bigger balloon, and even bigger, eventually I would make the balloon so big that gas would then do the opposite, and it would pull to the center of the balloon like gas does in space to create gas planets and suns?
What do you mean pull to the center of the balloon?
So if gas is affected by gravity, if mass attracts mass and gas is mass, then, and there's suns in the sky and there's planets which are supposedly gas, like Jupiter or Saturn, then that means sometimes gas does the opposite of what we see on Earth. Gas on Earth never pulls to the center.
Right.
But in space, it does eventually.
Well, okay, so I would disagree with the assertion that gas doesn't pull to the center, and I think this is simply demonstrated by the fact that we actually have a gradient in the atmosphere showing that there is gas being pulled down. What the gradient shows is that in not all occasions does gas just expand to fill the available space. Gas, like all other matter in the universe, just reacts to any forces that are acting on it. If you were to get a balloon big enough to fit gas inside it that was bigger than the Earth and move it away from the Earth, you wouldn't need that balloon anymore, because the mass of the gas would, the mass of all that gas would be big enough that hydrodynamic equilibrium would just make it form a sphere. But if that gas is near something else, like if you have a helium balloon near the Earth is the thing that's making the prevailing gravitational force because it's the biggest thing there. If we put Earth next to Jupiter, we'd be pulled into Jupiter because the mass of all that gas is more than the mass of the Earth.
It's a fancy story, but it's not matched in reality as far as. So what you're saying though is if a balloon, let's say we put up a normal sized balloon, we know that the gas is trying to get out and we know that the pressure isn't enough to hold it in. But you're saying if I then let's do a balloon double that size, wouldn't the gas be trying to get out double as much, and wouldn't the amount of pressure from the outside be half as much? Basically what I'm saying is, at what point do the tides switch to where now the gas isn't trying to get out, it says never mind, now I want to come in? Where's the point of that?
Right, so the gas trying to get out is to do with the fact that there's less pressure out there than in here, right? So if the way to think about this is to just imagine a sole gas molecule sitting in space with nothing else around. There's no forces acting on it. Just this one sole molecule of helium just floating along, right? Okay. Now, if there's no other forces, it's just going to stay there and do nothing. But then if you put Earth
we have no evidence of that. That's just a thought process, right? There's no evidence of that. That's just
that's just all. There's no forces acting on something, nothing happens, because that's how all matter works. If no forces are acting on something, then there's going to be nothing happening to it. Newton's laws or something that we know is factual, right? So if you have this single molecule of helium in space, it's not going to do anything. But then you put Earth next to it, then Earth's mass creates this gravitational force that's going to make that go to it. The further away you are from Earth, the less that gravitational force you are, which is why you have a gradient. So if you have a helium balloon on Earth that is from the atmosphere on Earth and you send it up to the edge of Earth's atmosphere, the mass of Earth is going to create a gravitational force that's going to stop that gas expanding out into the vastness of space. It's going to become part of the atmosphere again. Just like, using mustard gas, that gas will sit on the floor because it's heavier. It's got more of a mass, so there's more of a gravitational force acting on it for the acceleration for it to be down there. Gas is simple. Gas is matter, and all matter in the universe just reacts to any forces that are acting on it.
Yeah, I would say there's just not enough evidence of that being the case when it comes to gas. I've not seen gas react to gravity as you would expect. Again, I talked about this thought experiment, and we actually have a guy who can do this. If we had a vacuum chamber on Earth, let's say it's the size of my room, and at the bottom of the vacuum chamber, we put another electronic box, and in it we put air, okay, and we seal it. Now we evacuate the large chamber, which would leave just a vacuum with a box of air at the bottom. If we electronically open that box, the air will definitely fill the vacuum. It will not sit at the bottom of that box.
Well, it will fill the vacuum, but what you would
Yeah.
find is there would be a gradient of pressure.
Right,
And-
because that's what density calls for.
Well, why would it call for it if you take one gas that is the same density, right, and fill that vacuum that you've just made with it? Why should there be a gradient of pressure of just one gas? There's no reason why there should be higher pressure towards the bottom and lower pressure towards the top. And then you could take that vacuum chamber and flip it upside down, and the density of the pressure inside it would go still be at the bottom. It would change.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that shows that gas doesn't just fill an available space. That box
but that could be
that's contained
electrostatic,
in that
right?
gas, right? That means that because that gas, it has a pressure inside it, it's got a kinetic energy waiting to be released. And as soon as you open that box, the kinetic energy that gas has will make that gas move. But once that kinetic energy has expelled, the gas will just arrange itself based on the forces that are acting on it, which is why you would then get a gradient of pressure inside that vacuum.
As long as you're still not near a vacuum.
Well, no, if that's a contained vacuum and you release a gas into it, then what you've made will now have a gradient of whatever gas you've released into it. If you then have another vacuum next to it, it's going to go into that. Whatever kinetic energy it has will fill that, and then again it will arrange itself into a gradient based on the forces that are acting on it.
Yeah, but the Earth, we're told, has a whole vacuum around it. So there's never a point that you would ever get to the point that you're saying that it would then assemble itself. It's always near a vacuum. There's always pressure near no pressure.
Well, no, there's never pressure near no pressure because space isn't a perfect vacuum. Space is just a low pressure system, 10 to the negative
close,
17
right?
torr.
Certainly more than we can do on Earth.
What we see is that gas doesn't do that because we know there's a gradient. Even right in front of you in your room, there's a gradient of pressure. It's higher near the floor and it's less near your ceiling. But the where the gas is higher pressure at the floor, it's not rushing to fill that space at the top because there's less pressure. It's arranging itself because there's a force acting on it, and that happens to all gas on Earth. All gas on Earth arranged itself in a density where it's higher towards the surface, it's less as you go up. That's why when you go up Mount Everest, you have to weigh oxygen because there's not enough.
You're saying
up
that
there.
all the layers are perfectly in order with the density of the gases. Isn't there a mixture of it?
The ratio of
what is air?
gases stays roughly the same until you start getting really high up. At the summit of Everest, the ratio of gases is still the same as the ratio of gases at the surface. There's just less of it overall.
Right. Okay. But each of those elements weighs different amounts, right? Or has different densities, but yet stays together and kind of organizes together.
Yeah, because of gravity is acting on it. So if you mix all of the gases together, it makes air, which is a gas, right? And air has a certain density. So that air, the mixture of all the gases, will arrange itself on density because of the forces acting on it. And that's what happens in space. It's because there's a force acting on a gas, it goes towards that force. And if you've got more gas at one place than the other, then that gas will go towards the more place because there's more mass, more gravitational force. And then, because that's now more, it will attract more, and then you get gas planets, and then you get stars.
When we have a density tower and we have those different things in there that, organize themselves, but you're saying air is a combination of certain gases and it stays together. So why in the density tower, if we put a certain thing in there,
That's liquid and gases mixed differently.
Okay, that was kind of my question. Because I would assume that if gravity were real and it was to be pulling at different gases, then you would have the heavier gases would separate out from the lighter gases. But you're saying with air, they all just are different gases that just stay together as air.
Yeah, because you've got one, air itself is a gas of all these compounds together. It's kind of hard to just take oxygen away from the air. It's all mixed together. But the ratio of that gas stays the same until you get really, 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 really high up. And the temperatures become more of a problem for it. But
my thing on that is I just think that it's a nice story about how these gas planets and suns work. But again, we don't really see a direct evidence of that on Earth that we would be able to show easily that like gas attracts gas or something like that. It just doesn't seem like what we see. When I see clouds outside, I see two clouds. I don't see the clouds going towards each other.
Well,
I don't see that.
It's to do with gravity is proportional to masses, right? So the mass of a cloud isn't big enough to attract another cloud because there's other forces that are happening, like there's wind and stuff that will be making
Cavendish.
a bigger force than that. The Cavendish experiment is set up in a particular way that you are able to measure a small force because all the other forces are taken into account.
Yeah, but not all the other ones, but if we take cigarette smoke or anything like that, I mean, we could set something up and try and show gas attracting gas. I don't think it would ever work.
I mean, again, it's the mass involved.
You would need Cavendish,
mass bigger than the Earth to attract cigarette smoke because the force of buoyancy acting on cigarette smoke overcomes the force of gravity.
Well, buoyancy itself is because I guess the way you would describe it is the reason a helium balloon goes up is because it's actually the Earth pulling air down. Causing the balloon to go up?
So buoyancy is a result of gravity pulling things down. Everything has the same gravitational acceleration acting on it, which means obviously there's a different force depending on the mass. If you take a helium balloon next to some air, the same volume of air as that helium balloon will have more of a density, more of a mass, which means there's more of a gravitational force acting on the air than there is that balloon, which means it's pulled down stronger, which creates a force in the opposite direction, pushing the helium balloon up.
Even though gravity could also be pulling the helium balloon down.
Yeah, but because it's pulling down the air more than the balloon will naturally go up in the opposite direction. There is still a force pulling it down, but now because the medium that it's in is displacing it, that force overcomes gravity.
All right, let's go to the last one. You start it. Go first.
Yeah.
Mirror flashes.
Right, so laser tests and mirror flashes have the same problem. And that is that light does refract. Light does refract. Whether it's from a mirror, whether it's from a laser, it doesn't matter. Light going through a medium of varying densities refracts. So any claims of, oh, well, we've done this laser test and we can see too far, or we flash this mirror and we can see it too far, it's the same thing. We don't know if it's too far unless we are able to calculate the refraction, and we can't calculate the refraction unless there's measurements of the density and the temperature and the pressure of the air between the points. So any time that a flat earther says we can see too far, we see this mirror, we see this laser, unless we know the conditions, we can't really say that that's not possible or it's possible, because refraction will do the same to either of them.
Even though a mirror flash is line of sight. So
what does that mean?
I'll show you as best I can here. This might not be a good example for you, but this is a video here of myself. I'm walking over here just to show you that when we do a mirror flash, as you see here, I'm going to start flashing the mirror. Okay, that's what a mirror flash is. And what you're actually seeing...
You're not showing me.
Oops. Sorry, I didn't transition over here. There you go. Now you'll see it. What you'll actually see here is that as I start flashing the mirror and you get what you're seeing there is a reflection of the sun. Okay?
Yeah.
That's what a mirror flash is. So as I keep doing this, if I duck down and become occulted by anything, then you're going to lose the mirror flash. Okay? So because you have to have line of sight to the mirror. You can't be obstructed by anything. You'll see here the second that I'm obstructed, then that light goes, and you'll actually see the light a little bit behind the see-through, boat thing. But I mean, right there. So now you've lost it, and I'm still flashing the light at my camera, but you just don't see it. You don't even see a light appearing above me or coming. Yeah. Now, here's when we do laser tests, I've seen people say when we see that little light appear here, people say, "Oh, you're actually not looking at the source of the laser. You're looking at the laser as it comes over the curve." That actually isn't a bad explanation for that. I don't agree with it, but I do see where somebody can have that argument. So I stopped kind of doing laser tests because I'm like, well, yeah, how could you ever determine whether the light that you're seeing is the source or the moment that it appeared over some sort of curve? In this case, though, as you see, there is no flash of light showing up because it's not a laser. I'm not focusing the light onto the mirror and then lasering it off in a direction. Simply, it's just a reflection of the. So as soon as you occult it, we lose the mirror flash. What you're saying then is when we do long distance mirror flashes, that we're occulting the mirror, but then somehow magically light is lifting the person and the mirror up to the horizon and allowing me again to see the mirror flash. That I'm supposed to believe that about refraction. It's actually moving people.
Right. So it's not magical and it's not moving people. What it's doing is changing the path that the light is taking. Right. So whether it's a mirror flash or a laser doesn't matter. It's still light coming from a point going to somewhere else, right? So if you're standing at a beach and you're flashing the laser, the light, the mirror, and you can see it really far away, what's happened is that light has come from the sun, it's bounced off of that mirror, and then it's traveled from the mirror to the person's eyes. But that light that's traveled from the mirror to the eyes has still had to go through a medium of varying density that has caused that light to refract. And it's going to do the exact same thing to a laser light as it is going to do to the mirror flashlight, because it's not just the light from the mirror that is lifting up, it's the light of everything. The light that is coming and bouncing off of a building is still getting refracted. The light, the way you see is by light bouncing off something and coming to you. And that light has gone through a medium that has caused it to refract. And the natural way that light refracts is when it goes into a more dense medium, it bends down. It has an index of refraction that makes it go down. And when it's a gradient, you've got lots of those indexes of refraction that take it down and down and down. So the light is bending over the curve because it's bending down. Now, because the light is bending over the curve and it's the light that you see that is making the image, it makes it appear to you as though that image is higher up than it would be, than the pure geometry of the Earth would suggest.
So think of a sphere and then think of the layers of atmosphere. And then now we send a light down the road. Why wouldn't it refract up? Because you're not hitting more dense and more dense layers. You're actually hitting less dense and less dense and less dense.
Because that light goes out in all directions. It doesn't go just in one direction. And even when you're going, if you're pointing it slightly up, because the Earth is a globe and the atmosphere is curved as well as the globe, that light will go through and bend down and down and down as it follows the curve. You know, if you're flying it through a curve, it's going to end up going through more dense as it goes.
No, explain that. Explain that. If you think of a sphere and then think of the layers of atmosphere, then if a light is going through it, it's going to be at its most dense layer down towards the Earth. But as the light goes out, it's getting further from the Earth, and therefore it's getting less dense, which would cause it to bend the other way.
Yeah, but again, light doesn't go in just one direction. Light travels in, a sphere.
So let's talk about a laser beam. Let's talk about a coherent laser light then.
Right. So when you point a laser light up,
let's say we point it as a tangent. So we point it as a tangent to a sphere.
Yeah.
Great,
If you point a laser light as a tangent to a sphere, if you would see that light going above you.
Right. It would get less and less and less.
Yeah.
Okay.
But obviously lasers fire out in a cone and it's very hard to get it to do an exact beam like that. But it's still going to be, if it's a tangent and hitting the surface of the Earth, then after that tangent, it's still going to be going through a medium going down, right? Or
okay,
before
so let me
it gets
explain
there.
An observation that we're going to be doing coming up, and you tell me if you still believe what you're saying. So we're going to do 24 miles across the Monterey Bay. And in 24 miles, there's a 96-foot chord length. Okay, so if people don't know what that is, it's also called the sagitta. It's also called the hump.
Yeah, the straight line through the Earth.
Right. So if we take 24 miles, basically on one end of the Monterey Bay and the other, and then we draw a straight line between those people, well, on a sphere, it has to cut through the Earth, right? And the distance that cuts through the Earth to the top of the curve is 96 feet. If people don't know how tall that is, that's the Redeemer statue in Brazil. Okay, it's huge. 96 feet is ridiculous. And to think that a person standing holding a mirror and a person standing holding a camera at only 24 miles. That magically, and I do call it magic because you keep describing it, but it always works magically to show us exactly what would disprove the globe, or at least call into question. Because now we have to believe that somehow light has lifted the person up 96 feet, as high as a 10-story building, and showed me the mirror light from my location. And I'm able to pick it up again.
Okay,
that's
think of it this way: 24 miles, right? Rather than think of it as, oh, that equals this amount of feet has been lifted up. 24 miles is like a third of a degree on the Earth, right? If the Earth is, the size we say it is, then 24 miles is about a third of a degree. Well, that means that the light only has to bend a third of a degree for you to be able to see that. Now, the longer the distance, that third of a degree is going to become more and more of a height, but it's still just a third of a degree that the light is having to bend the whole way.
It bends at a rate of a third degree, or what do you mean?
I'm saying that for you to be able to see that, right? For you to be able to see something that's 24 miles away, because 1 degree is 69 miles, it's going to be about a third of a degree that the light would have to bend to be able to go around that curve. So
yeah, I guess I don't really understand bend as much as I do like lift. You're talking about because the light needs to be lifted for me to see.
Well, the light is bending down, which for you appears to lift the image up because you're seeing the light. The path of the light is coming to your eyes. So if the light is bending down around the curve from you, you're going to see what is around the curve because that's the path the light is taking towards your eyes.
So back in the Army in the 1800s, when they did basically communication through mirror flashes, and they did it because there was a line of sight and it was very secure, you're saying that it was kind of secure, but also anybody in line with that observation could have seen it because the curvature of the Earth doesn't matter with mirror flashes because it will always lift them up perfectly to the point where...
Well, I'm saying that any light at all is going to be subject to refraction. There's going to be a distance where you can't see it because the refraction won't be able to lift it that far unless the conditions are good enough. In certain extreme conditions, you can technically see for as far as you could without atmospheric disturbances getting in the way. But there's always going to be refraction happening at anything you look at. Even in the room that you're in right now, Jaren, the light bouncing off the walls that you're seeing, that light has refracted as it's come to your eyes. It's gone through a medium that has varying densities.
Right, but if somebody was inside the closet,
you're creating a difference.
If somebody was inside the closet a mile that direction and I somehow saw them, that'd be very strange. Be like, why am I seeing that person? They're inside the closet a mile deep. And
you wouldn't see inside the closet because the light can't go through things, but it can go over a curve because of refraction.
Right. So same thing with the person inside the closet. Maybe it's going around the closet. Well, just saying. I know
if they're in the closet, it can't get out the closet because there's the closet blocking it. There's nowhere it can go around.
Well, the open closet. But
if it's open,
bad example.
Yeah.
Bad example. So, but
sorry, I thought you meant if it was closed. My bad.
No, yeah, my bad. It's not a good example. I'm just trying to say that it seems very crazy to me that we can now see around corners, see around curves, because refraction just does exactly what we need it to do to keep the globe belief. Because basically now we can never see too far, right? That's not even something that we can say that any glober is going to give any credence to, because really you feel that even if we saw the Empire State Building from California, that you would just say that refraction has lifted it and caused the light to bend over the curve of the Earth.
So, no, I disagree that you can't ever say that, right? But if you do these experiments, the important thing is to give us all of the information, right? So if you were to do that 24 miles over
but how am I supposed to? You're talking about getting the what? Take a boat across there and make sure I measure every 10 feet, or what do you want to do?
Well, every, 100 meters or something, right? If every 100 meters between those points, or even every mile between those points. Okay. Let's say every mile between those points, right? If you took a barometric pressure reading and a temperature reading every mile between those points, then we could do calculations and say, right, well, this is what we would expect the light to do based on that. And we could see if it holds up. But when you guys just do a mirror flash test or a laser test and go, it's longer than the Earth's geometry says so, we don't really have enough information to say whether it's valid or not, because we know how refraction works. It's something that's very well quantified. But without the information from you guys on the path that light has traveled, we can't give it any credence because we don't have a way to verify it or do any calculations to see if it works.
Okay, so tell me what I need to do to eliminate that chance. So what things do you want every mile? Temperature.
Say between
The temperature of the water and the
and
temperature of the
5
air?
meters above. If there's a thing called a lapse rate, right? And that is how quick the temperature changes as you go up. And the lapse rate allows us to calculate the refractive index. So if you were to every mile say, well, at the surface of the water it's X degrees, but at 5 meters up it's X degrees, then we would be able to calculate the lapse rate at each of those points and figure out what refraction says the light should be doing.
Okay.
I mean, I'm never going to say, oh no, they're completely useless.
No, but what I'm saying
Because
is
they
what
are
happens is-
useful if you do it the correct way. But frankly, the way that Flat Earth has been doing it hasn't been able to
No,
give
and
us
I'll agree with
anything
you
that
on
we
that.
can do.
Here's the thing. What we need to do if we're going to move this forward is come up with repeatable, kind of ironclad experiments, right? Because anybody can say, I saw a mirror flash here, I saw one there. Again, I don't expect if you said you didn't see a mirror, it's not going to make me go, oh, they didn't see a mirror, so therefore it's curved. So I get it. But what we do need to come up with is repeatable things so that if we do see it and it doesn't match refraction, then you guys can go out and you can test it yourself and see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the temperature, lapse rate at the water surface at 5 meters up.
Well,
what
not
else?
even 5 meters. Whatever. Say the observer's height is 2 meters. Then give us the lapse rate for 2 meters across.
Okay.
As much as you can. Pressure is helpful to know as well. Humidity on the day. Just general humidity in the area will give us an idea of how the refraction should work.
Water temperature?
The water temperature isn't as important. It's more the temperature of the air that the light is passing through. We want to be able to analyze the experiments you do, but we can't because we've got none of the information to do that.
I got it. This makes sense to me. Okay. So I got that. I believe we're good. You can do your outro and we'll be heading off.
Yeah. Before we do my outro, are you ever going to forgive me for chasing off Jenny Rose?
I think you're just rude for doing it, but yeah, I mean, in any other circle of life, that would not be acceptable. But that's the world that we live in. That if everybody's accepting of everybody, and we got to be accepting of everybody, except for if you're a flat earther, then it's okay to open season to go after bimbos, I guess.
I mean, it wasn't necessarily anything to do with the fact that she was, I'm not going to lie, she was hot, right? It was nothing to do with that.
Way to be honest.
In my mind, right, she was someone that was gaining a lot of traction on TikTok and getting a lot of the young people to watch her videos. She's pretty, they're going to look at her, they're going to listen to her. So I thought it was important to debunk her. I didn't realize she'd run away from the internet after I did it.
Well, it wasn't really you as much as it was other people, but I'm sure you had something to do with it. So
Yeah.
no, we're not very happy about that, but maybe she'll come back. But yeah, I just thought it was kind of, but you did make me look up a word because at first I saw your video and it said something about a bimbo. I'm like, what? A bimbo's blonde. So I went look it up and I was wrong.
No.
It used to be that, but it's not anymore. So anyway, I was going to say, you're an idiot. You don't even know what a bimbo is. So, all right. I believe we're good. Go ahead, do
Outro,
your-
yeah.
outro.
So, as I said at the start, my thing is evidence, and I think this conversation for me was more showing that I still don't think there's evidence of the flat Earth that holds up to scrutiny. That's not saying there isn't any evidence for the flat Earth, because anything you guys present can be counted as evidence, but it's whether that evidence will hold up to the scrutiny of what we understand about how physics and everything works. Like with the mirror flashes and laser tests, it's a good thing to determine stuff, but we need to know what's happening with the light before we can make any analysis of the experiments that you guys do. I really enjoy these conversations. Yeah, I know that I've got a bad reputation for shouting and stuff because I've done that a lot. I have tried to be calmer and better recently, and I hope I've been on my best behavior during this conversation.
Didn't you have like a near heart attack or something?
Yeah, well, that was to do with a change in my medication. And
calm down, relax.
I had a little mini kind of thing that then sent me into a massive panic attack and tore a little muscle in my heart and stuff, and it was quite sore. But that was also one of the things, along with you calling me fight the tight shirt, that got me to go and realize that I can make myself better. So thanks for that. But yeah, I don't think these conversations need to necessarily be hostile, right? Me and you, during this conversation, we've been polite, we've been back and forth, we haven't interrupted, we haven't shouted, we haven't name called. And I would prefer to have those kind of conversations. When I end up with the shouty conversations, it's because I try to match the energy of the person that's talking to me. And if they are shouting and interrupting, then I just go full FTFE and do the same. I hope today I've shown that when I've got someone that wants a proper conversation, that I can absolutely do that as well. And Jeren, thank you honestly for allowing me to come and talk to you. I think this has been a long time coming.
All right, awesome. You gonna go through? I don't know if you want to read any of your super chats or if any of your questions for me.
Let me just quickly see if there's any questions for you.
Renee Calcia says, "Whatever happens, we have Truth Seeker, Peace." I don't know, your balloon's in the way. I can't read what else it says. It says, "Why long hair in the ISS and zero gravity plane not behave identical?" Yeah, I think that's for you.
I mean, as far as I can see, they act the same. I mean, if you're talking about that woman with apparently the hairspray on, you watch that whole video and she's like got it down in the ponytail beforehand and she gets it out and ruffles it up and stuff. And that's how I imagine it would act. I'd have to see a comparison between hair on ISS and hair on the 0G plane for that to...
So, True Seeker, do that if you can find evidence of that. And if you pass it to me on Telegram, I can pass it to him. Celebrate the first... Oh, that was your first time ever super chatting. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Woo.
Truth Seeker, peace out is what you wrote there. I see it now. SL, $20. Thank you very much. Says, tip from a Chinese person on the ISS. Proof. Good work, friend. Keep going.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead if you have any. I'll keep...
Right, so we've got JS Tiger who says, Jeren, how do you know that no astronaut has ever taken a picture at night on the ISS?
Because I've looked for it. So if I'm wrong about that, what you need to find is just an astronaut. It happens all the time during the day. They'll go over and show you, oh, look outside, we can see. But I've never found one at night because, number one, what would they be showing us? It's just dark on the Earth. But I would think you would see lights there because or stars. What we're told is that every time we say, why is there no stars? We're always told, oh, it's because it's overexposed. But then sometimes we see that, like on the ISS, the sun goes down, it gets completely dark, we don't see any stars. So the excuse there is baffling because it's like, well, there's no overexposure now. And how come my iPhone camera, if I take it outside and I could show a really bright house or show a bright car or something, and then if I just turn it and point it at the sky and there's no streetlights, I will immediately pick up stars. So if that's true for my iPhone, I find it hard to believe that NASA is so inept that they can't figure out how to put a camera on the ISS that shows us stars. It's just weird to me. It's something you wouldn't expect.
I mean, I have seen stars from cameras on the ISS.
What you see is the time-lapse footage of stars. Yeah. What I'm looking for is a live view of somebody going to the window with a camera, which they do during the day, right? They have like, oh, here's an ISS tour and this and that. And the girl will go over to the window and show you outside. But they've never done that during night. So
okay, well, I'll have to look up and see if I can find a picture of night. And we got JSS Tiger again says, Jeren, do any flat earthers have interest in verifying midnight sun in Antarctic or even 23 hours sun further north?
Well, the north is accepted in the flat earth. We all, I mean, at least as far as I know, I think everybody, well, there is some flat earthers, the real globe busters and some other people that actually say that there is no circling sun. And they're the ones who believe in the Pac-Man, as we call it, basically a Mercator map where the sun goes off one side and comes back the other. I don't believe that. As far as the 24-hour sun, yes, I'm interested in seeing it, but it's ridiculously expensive. So, you know, to get a cruise down, and that's just to go to the little peninsula, the little fishtail that comes out there is like $30,000. So to go to the interior of Antarctica, you're talking much more than that. But I do think you would find somebody, if you were able to get a cheaper trip or something, if that's what you're thinking, we could find somebody who would want to go and film the 24-hour sun if it happens in Antarctica. Okay. We've got Renee Calcea says, question for the CGI globe lover. I don't think that's me. If during the moon trip, they use inertia navigation, so which star did the astronauts point at?
They use celestial navigation, not inertial navigation. I think he meant to say celestial navigation. I'm not entirely sure which star they did it from. I just know they did celestial navigation in space. I'd have to look up the specifics of that.
Okay.
But there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to do it in space. You just need to have two angles between stars, really, and that would help you. We got Lewis Racecourse History Group for £5 says, Jeren, can you tell me Are there any two places on Earth that are more than 13,000 miles apart? Because this is impossible on a globe, but should be okay on a flat Earth.
Yeah, I would say that there definitely is. Yep. If you were to say the tip of South America to the tip of South Africa, well, I'm trying to think of here. No. Like if you go New Zealand, Auckland to, say, I believe it's Johannesburg, or I'm thinking Buenos Aires. Maybe it's Buenos Aires. So those two locations would be much more, which is like why there's no flights between those. There's no flight Buenos Aires to Auckland, because that would actually go directly over the South Pole. It's kind of one of the flights that, I asked Neil deGrasse Tyson, let's take this flight. Of course, Neil's not going to answer me, but that would be your answer. That those two locations would definitely be more than 13,000 miles.
Look,
And yes,
I'll
that
ask
would be-
Neil to answer you next time we're at the NASA secret meetings, okay? We're currently
Chill.
in the
Chill,
middle
everybody.
of setting up the annual breakdancing competition we hold on the moon. Bill Nye wins that every year, so we're trying to find a way to stop him entering. But I'll ask Neil next time I see him, okay?
Bill Nye does not win anything.
No,
All right,
I've got more qualifications than Bill Nye. He's just an engineer with a bachelor's in engineering. I've got more degrees than Bill Nye. That's fine.
See, there you go. You should take his job. How does Craig feel about the India moon landing hoax?
I don't
Or do you
think
believe
it's a hoax. I think it happened. It's been verified by lots of third parties. I've got no reason to suspect that it isn't what we've been told. I haven't personally verified anything myself. I am just basing my position on the evidence that's been shown.
Okay. You said you don't take people's word for it. So you're basing it
Yeah.
off of the evidence that's been shown, which is a little funny cartoon and a
Well,
terrible...
all the other stuff, like the actual the camera on the lander, the verifying pictures from the rover and stuff, the third party telemetry data and things like that. Again, the evidence that is there, I'll base my position on. If I'm able to verify anything myself, then I'd do that to double check. But with the absence of any evidence to go against the evidence has been shown, that's just what I base my position on. And at the moment, I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that it was fake.
Do you think that NASA, when they went up there some 6 times or whatever, should have found water or evidence of water? I find it hard to
If
believe.
they were
that
near
there's
the poles, then they may have found some water ice.
They weren't.
But they didn't go anywhere near the poles.
No, I would just think if there's ice somewhere that you would see it elsewhere. I guess maybe not.
Most of the ice would evaporate into space. It would sublimate from it would go straight to a gas. But when you could possibly have water ice in lava tubes underneath the surface and things like that. We don't know. I think that's why the Indian lander's there at the moment, to see if we can find any of that. But NASA didn't ever send any missions anywhere where there could have been the possibility of that, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Go ahead, next one if you have one.
No, that one's not for you.
We got Patty
Most
the
Race Course
Flatty.
History Group says, Ash Jeranism, why does it get darker at the equator faster than the rest of Earth?
Get darker at the equator faster than the rest of Earth. I don't know what you mean by that.
No, neither do I really.
I don't know what they mean. Patty the Flatty said, go Jaron. I'm surprised he'd even debate you, man. Well, I don't like the word debate just because I think that it's I'd rather have a conversation with someone. I mean, we can have a debate. We can call this a debate if we want. But I just
Debate.
I think that when you see that, debates are never very productive to me. I think conversations are more productive, because a debate is like a he won, she won. It's like a win thing, and it's not really about winning. It's more about growing. I learned some stuff from Craig tonight. I'll be able to look up, and hopefully he did the same. And I think that just
Certainly
helps us
things
get
to look up,
closer. Yeah, and then you should grow from that. If next time we have a conversation, we still are at an endpoint on some of these facts, then that's where you start after asking yourself, well, which one of us is not bending our beliefs for the evidence? Which one is? So, we'll see what happens in the future.
I mean, you've definitely listened to some of the things I've said today, and you've said that you look into them, which is all I can ask, really. Right. Second best Bob for £10 says, I listened to Oakley today. I'm very sorry that you had to do that.
Great.
Oakley is like, he's a voice that you want to punch. That's all I can say. But anyway, he says he's really not very keen on Jeran. Does Jeran care?
No, I don't care. No, I don't care. I mean, I wish for the community that I think that he could have his little show over there and do his thing, and it would be great. But I don't understand the attacks for, again, most of us got into this because we wanted to have an open mind. We want to talk about some subjects. Well, that group is very dogmatic. You're only allowed to say this. You can't say that. You have to say this way. Nobody's going to tell me how to say things. So that's comes in.
I think you're a flat earther, Jeranism. I don't think Oakley is. There's
Well,
no way.
I mean,
if he is a flat earther, then he's making flat earthers look very bad with the way he does things.
Again, I don't like to comment on people's YouTube channel because I want to run my channel my way, but I think there is better ways that he could have done this and been more a part of everything. And, but again, people sometimes want to stand alone. They want to take a stand. And if he does, so be it. But no, it does not bother me. If that's your question, I don't care.
Right. Clarence AS2 £5 says, Jaren, did you do any market research to see if there was demand for cruises from Australia to South America?
No, I don't even. No, I wouldn't. I don't have time to do that. I mean, to me, you wouldn't need to do market research to find out if people want to go on a cruise. My dad goes on a cruise. Seems like every month. Well, not since COVID, but it's been a little bit less. But anyway, he goes on a cruise all the time, and he just likes being on the boat. He likes to gamble. He likes to drink. He likes to eat. And I can't imagine him ever saying, like, I don't want to do that cruise because I don't like being on the water. So to me, it just seems like something that would happen. We've looked into it. We've found cruises that go from South America, but they'll head up. They'll go to Easter Island. They'll go to Papet. They'll go to the Tonga. So it's like a multi-day trip, talking 30, 40, 50 days. And then there used to be one, I couldn't find it the other day looking for it, that used to supposedly go skirt Antarctica for a little while. It would go Santiago to Sydney or Auckland, one or the other. But it was like a 65-day trip. So when you do the math at basically 10,000 miles versus 7,000 miles with a cruise ship, you're talking about the difference of like 8 days, meaning that a cruise ship could do at 20 miles per hour, could do 7,000 miles in like 12 days, and it would do 10,000 in like 18 days or something. It's something close to that. But basically, that's a big enough stretch that to me, this is why they don't have the cruises, because it would be weird if you're going 7,000 miles, but it took you way too long, right? Meaning that you actually went 10,000 miles. So hopefully that made sense. But no, I've not done any market research on that.
All right, you got any more for me?
Yeah, even my dog knows all the moon landings were faked. That's according to LJ. LJ, pretty smart dog. If he can get that on camera, we might have something.
Yeah, please, I'd love to hear your dog saying that. I asked my dog, and he said, woof, woof, bark.
Oh, that means yes. Yeah.
And you, a lot of your guys wouldn't have seen that, and I just have to show them. This is my puppy. This is Commander Riker. He's 15
Riker?
weeks old. Yeah, Commander Riker. That's from Star Trek.
Oh boy.
It's the first officer of Picard from the Enterprise.
That's second. When you have your dog named after somebody from space travel related, or tattoos on your arms of people who have completed science, like Newton and Sagan and all that, and then I think you might be a little bit too deep to ever come out.
Well, it's just we want him to be our good little number one, our good little companion. And Riker was always Picard's good companion. So, this is Commander Riker. And whether you think the Earth's flat or not, that's a fucking cute puppy, right?
I'll agree with that.
All right, the Grumpy Old Mechanic, Jaren, says that he will pay you $500 to live stream yourself reading 20 abstracts each from the Journal of Astronomy and Astrophysics and the Journal of Geophysical Research from your local university library.
Okay, so again, do you know this person, or is it just it's
troll? Someone who's in my chat quite a lot. The Grumpy Old Mechanic, he says he'll pay you $500 to live stream yourself reading 20 abstracts from each the Journal of Astronomy and Astrophysics and the Journal of Geophysical Research from your local university library. The abstract is just like the start of the beginning that explains stuff.
Okay, 20 abstracts from what? Astrophysics?
Journal of Astrophysics, Journal of Astronomy and Astrophysics, and the Journal of Geophysical Research.
In the Journal of Geological Research.
Right. What's your email? And he can email you with that request.
One more thing. It was Journal of Geological what?
Journal of Geophysical Research.
Geophysical Research. He can email Jaren at Jeranism. It's fine.
Jaren at Jeranism, yeah. Email that request to Jay. If you want to see that, send an email.
Yeah, I could use that money. We've got... Max says, so refraction plus gravity equals light hits the globe and then changes course and follows the curves around the globe. Do they really say that?
Sorry, say that again?
He said, so refraction plus gravity equals light hits the globe and then changes course and follows the curves around the globe, do they really say that? What he's saying is that the change in medium of the atmosphere causes the light to bend.
Yeah.
And they're actually, he kind of removed gravity from the equation.
The mass of Earth isn't large enough to bend light on that scale that we would notice it. The amount that light is bent by gravity is very, very small, so much so that during the Eddington experiment of 1919, it was just seeing one of the stars move a very tiny amount due to the mass of our star. And so the mass of the Earth really isn't enough to bend the light the amount that would affect it for us to be able to see it.
I'll send you something on that I think that's been kind of debunked. But anyway, I'll send it to you. We've got John Zimmer says, give FTFE a $5 to cut his Sonic hairstyle off.
Never. Like, this is all my hair does, guys. It's either this or bald.
It's Jimmy Neutron.
I don't mind being called Jimmy Neutron. I do need a haircut. It's a little big at the moment, but I've got such a receding hairline that there's two options. This faux hawk, which it naturally falls into this shape, or bald. And my wife told me that if I go bald again, she'll leave me. So
okay. I would suggest you delete your channel, and then none of us have to worry about it at all. 10mmj says, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. According to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, you are correct. We've got You Are Mopped. $5 says, Jeranism, been trying to connect with you on Facebook as per tune, who said you may be willing to be interviewed on a podcast. Yeah, but I didn't get any message on Facebook, so you might be...
you might have the same person that's asked that thing here.
Okay, it's facebook.com/Jeranism. If you have the other one, it's facebook.com/ my actual name. I don't even go on that Facebook anymore. It's old. It's the original one. Anyway, but I only go on the Jeranism one now. That's all I have. Oh, wait, let me go to Rockman. Sorry.
I've got PhD Tony,
who for
PhD. $10 Australian says, your guest has accused my entire profession, my colleagues, and by inclusion myself, of fraud, theft, incompetence, and immorality, but then insists he be treated with respect. Can you explain that?
Sure. So I've never accused PhD scientists of lying. What I am accusing you of is being a yes man, being somebody who went to school and got promoted through school because you were willing to do the assignments that others weren't. You were willing to put in the time and effort to do exactly what you were told. You didn't speak out when you weren't supposed to. You didn't really think outside the box, because people who think outside the box are not rewarded in school. They're sent to the principal's office and reprimanded. So if I have any accusation of you, it would be that possibly I believe that you simply believe what you were taught in a book, and there's little hints and things that allow you to kind of think that it applies to the real world. But when it comes to like astrophysics and cosmology and things like that, it's really just a story that they've been told. I don't know what your degree is in. Is it a certain branch of science?
His PhD is in specifically modeling seismic waves on flat Earth models, interestingly enough.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because everything works on a flat Earth. Everything works better.
What he found was it only worked up to a certain amount, and it stopped working after that. But
yeah, I've kind of read the same thing about like what do they use when they do radar, over the horizon radar? They use flat Earth as well. I just think that that's, but I think that you would use that regardless. If we really, I don't think you can even live on a sphere, but I'm just saying if we did, then I would think that you would mostly have to use flat Earth because it would be way too much.
It's easier to model, and because the Earth's so big, you can treat it as flat in so many circumstances. And in modeling, you kind of remove anything that's unnecessarily complicated before you kind of go further. But
models are so. Anyway, I mean, I think that I don't accuse them of lying. Now, is there some that may be lying? Sure, but I don't think teachers are in schools purposely lying to children. I think that they are imparting knowledge that was imparted to them, and they think that they're doing what's right. I just think we need to be smarter than that. We need to recognize where these books came from. Textbooks came from the Rockefellers and these kind of guys. And what they did is, do you really think the elite sat around and said, how do we make citizens more smart? We want children to be smart. We want adults to be smart. We want everybody to come and take our money and our power. Or do you think the elite sit around and say, how do we create tax-paying slaves who do what they're told and don't buck the system and allow us to stay rich and in power? I tend to go with the latter.
I'll agree with you that I don't like rich people, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, they're just gonna they're gonna try and keep their money and keep it away from us. We have Mike West, $10 says, ask FTFE, where are all the photos, videos, and time lapse evidence from the South Pole Station? There should be hundreds of independent reports.
Time of what? Of the sun?
No, he says, where are all the photos, videos, and time lapse evidence from the South Pole Station? There should be hundreds of independent reports.
Well, I'm sure there is. Has he looked for them?
I'm assuming if he said that, he's looked and hasn't
I
found
mean,
any.
I've seen lots of papers from the South Pole, so I'm not sure what he means, including a Foucault's pendulum experiment done at the South Pole.
You've seen it?
Well, I've seen the papers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think he's looking
Siggy
for photos and
Sigweld
video.
asks, Jaren, are you still in touch with Enrique, and how's he doing?
He's doing great. Yeah, he's fine. By the way, people think that drawing is of me in that movie, but that's Enrique. If you notice, I have a beard. The guy in the thing didn't have a beard. Enrique.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And
I've used that. I've used that on the wrong thumbnail. Bloody hell.
Yeah, that's actually supposed to be Enrique. He's the one with the light. But anyway, it looks like me, I guess. So people thought it was me.
I think that's all of the super chats for you from my side.
Thank you. I've got Hubble's Horror. It's got two more. Horror, Horror, not the other one. Thanks for these efforts. If a person can't step back and take a wide view of what has happened with all the effing lying, then maybe there is no hope for them unless they are an NPC troll and have no effing soul and don't care where they end up. And then Justin Johnson says flat power. So I'll just do my my quick close. I don't even need 2 minutes.
Yep.
But I think that the issue that I have with that is that if we are wrong, then I don't think it does any damage to anybody. I don't think that there's going to be anybody who kills themselves over flat Earth or something. But I think that if we are right and nothing is done about it, well, it sucks that we're just going to fall further into enslavement. As people have already seen, anybody who's watching this has seen your rights go away, whether you see it or not, whether you think the lockdowns were necessary, whether you think being told you have to put paper masks on your face is necessary, whatever you might think, you have to be able to say that our rights are being taken away. And this has been the story of humanity from the beginning of time. So to think it's going to change and all of a sudden now that governments are just going to act appropriately is wrong. Every government has become tyrannical. Every citizenry has had to eventually break those chains. And yet right now we're at a place where it's gotten really bad. And citizens are actually now arguing on behalf of the very governments that throughout history were overtaken and kept in control. But now we're just like, no, listen to the government. They tell you to do this, they do that. So I'm fearful of leaving the earth to my son and leaving him in a place that he will be guaranteed to be enslaved. So I do think there's no problem with questioning the authority. I think that's what science is. Science is being skeptical. You guys have just replaced it to being skeptical of anything that isn't science. That becomes a religion to me. That is the same as Christianity, who is very skeptical of anything that's not Christianity. So that's why they're a religion, because they have a dogma. They stay in their lane. This is what they believe. I look at science as the same way. I didn't used to. I used to think they were unbiased men who were doing tests and who cared about the truth. And then when I started looking into it and saw George Ellis, mainstream physicist, say a lot of cosmology tries to hide the fact that we chose our model by philosophical means, that's a problem. Why is the science lying to me to hide something? Why did Edwin Hubble say we have to stay away from the absolute horror of a unique position? That's not science, that's religion. So that's my thing, is that so you guys, and I don't care if people yell and scream and write all these mean things. I hope you guys know sometimes it works the opposite of what you think. The more crazy people I see about the globe who send me death threats or something in my email, it's just really baffling. It's like, really, if you just believed in the globe, would you actually send a death threat to somebody who believes something different? That's scary to me.
That's not good
anyway.
enough from either side. That's absolutely. I mean,
I've
had at last count 33, maybe 34 death threats. The majority of them from Santos. I
was going to say 14 are from me. So
yeah. But and from my side, I don't want anyone ever doing that. All right, yeah, take the mick out of Jeranism, call him an idiot, whatever you want, but don't send the dude death threats, because we are better than that. And I would never stick up if you were on my side and you were sending people on their side death threats and stuff. You'd never have my support.
Yeah, there's no reason for that. And I think keep the arguments to when it gets to be too much name calling. It's just you have to recognize people are going to shut down. There's never been a case where somebody's been called an idiot and an effing moron, and then they were like, okay, you're right, I'm wrong. That usually is what happens. What people do is they dig their feet in. So I always hear these globers who are like very shocked and confused where flat earthers come from. And really, a lot of it is because of the way that globers act. It was like, well, what do you expect? When you act like that, it looks to us like you don't have evidence. All you have is straw men. All you have is, insults. And I'm not saying our side doesn't do the same. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I know it goes both ways. But I'm just saying, from a flat earther's perspective, when I stand back and look at the big picture, I don't have any doubt why flat earth is growing. I don't have any doubt why it hasn't been washed away yet. When I got started on this, and I'll be honest with you, when I made my first video, my wife and I will say, we thought somebody was going to come along and show us why we were wrong. That was the goal. It was, we saw Mark Sargent's video. We're like, wow, there's so much about flat earth that started to make sense. And it was like, well, we're just missing something. So that we just have to, if I put out these videos, somebody's going to step forward and going to correct the problems that we're having. Well, the thing is that what instead happened is name calling and fighting and lying and, Red's rhetoric setting me up by, oh, you want to come and talk on my channel, being really nice. And I get there and then he yells at me. So it's like everything was like a deception. And then I just started watching sites change, sites that used to have planetariums up that no longer do because I called them out for not having the North Star move over a distance of time. So like all these things started happening, which were all signed to watch the movie Behind the Curve. If you were me and you went out and did an experiment and you guys failed and nothing was proven and you saw both, and then you see a movie come out that has to use you to get their point across, that is really bad evidence for the globe. Hate to tell you that people are like, well, Jaron saw a curve and he won't even admit it. It's like, no, it's the opposite of that. It's that we didn't see it and the movie had to portray me as I did see it. So if you think that drives me to be like, yeah, the globe is probably true, you're dead wrong. It's the opposite of that. I say, if you had all this money, why not go make a movie where you actually proved it? Why would you have to take me and make me prove it in your fantasy world?
Because it was funny.
Why not just prove it? So, anyway.
And talking about strawmans, I do just want to point out, because I said I would, and to be fair, the thumbnail for this, it's a strawman. All right, I absolutely 100% did a strawman on Jaron for my thumbnail. He does not think we live on an upside down turnip. Okay. So Mark Sargent, you said you watched some of his videos. What do you think of this video of Mark Sargent?
Flat Earth expert Mark Sargent thinks the moon landing was a hoax.
Technically, the moon is...
Just him stepping on the glove. It's good. Is that the one from Australia?
Yeah, that's the advert he did for Sportsbet.
Man, that was a long time ago. I forgot about that.
Right, PhD Tony asks, would you talk with him in a similar format?
I'd be open to it. Yeah. I mean, I always like to kind of vet people a little bit. I've heard PhD kind of yell some...
He has made a very concerted effort recently to be more on the respectful side of the conversation. In fact, he's been moderating a lot of my debates and actually calming me down. So I think a one-on-one conversation between you and PhD Tony could be very fruitful.
Can you just ask him right now, does he now say, has anybody died because of the vaccine? That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying anything beyond that.
Yeah, that's something I don't want to get involved in. You're free to ask him that yourself.
He's yelled at people before who have insinuated that and said that nobody did. So that's weird because now it's been admitted. So just wondering how that affects somebody who just yelled at somebody, called them names for suggesting that, and now it's out in the media that it is true. And I'm not saying, oh, it's more deaths this way no, I'm just saying that part has been admitted now. So I'm just wondering if
there were people that died as a result of the vaccine. That is factual.
And a year ago, you didn't say the same thing, right? You would have said nobody died from the vaccine.
I don't think I would have said nobody died, but I would have argued with it being as big as it would. But anyway, it's a conversation I really don't like getting into. For
it's dangerous on our channels.
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly.
Yeah. Take your vaccines, take your boosters, and
100%.
Trust the government. And NBC News is where all the truth is. All
But Jaron, I would very much like to do a. Apparently I was the one that said no one died of the vaccine, and if I did say that, then I was wrong.
I don't remember if you said one or maybe you said like one did or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, it should just be what I hope people recognize is that we're not always right. And I think when we get angry and we yell and scream, it looks really bad on you when a year later, and I don't know about you guys, but at least for conspiracy theorists, when we look back a year ago, we always believe differently than we did a year ago. So to then take what I believe now and shout and yell at people seems ludicrous because where am I going to be in a year? And then if I have to constantly correct, so I just see that too much. I wish people would kind of sit back, take what people say, think about it, wait out. But to get so emotionally involved, which is what I saw from PhD Tony, I get it. Yeah. It's a tough subject, and you maybe have it close to your heart or whatever. But just be careful about calling people names who are not doing things for their own benefit. Nobody's telling you that stuff is dangerous for our benefit. We actually feel that we're trying to help people. And that's what I don't think people understand is we're not trying to take anything away from. if something helps people, I'm all for it. But if something is untested and may not help people, and we just say that, we shouldn't be yelled at for it. If you choose to take untested stuff, that's on you. But anyway, I got to go. Thank you very much.
Jaron, thank you very much. I really appreciate the conversation. I hope
right.
that we can do this again because there's some things I would like to get into a bit more. And I'll try and arrange a conversation
I'll
with
send you that.
PhD Tony as well.
All right, and I'll send you some of the stuff I said, and you can send this.
Well,
all right,
take care, and thank you very much for the conversation. I'll speak to you again soon.
All right, peace.
Peace.
All right, that was FTF.
There we go. There is my first conversation with Jeranism. Now, I know a lot of people are going to give me slack for this, but I think he's a genuine flat earther. I really, really do think he is a genuine flat earther. He believes what he says. He thinks the earth is flat. He thinks we're being lied to about everything. And I say this because I have been personally talking to him nearly, every other day for a few months, trying to arrange this. And I think he is a flat earther. So let me just finish the poll, because the majority of you seem to think that he's not a flat earther, but quite a lot of you like trains and turtles. So, in fact, turtles came close second with 30%, but 37% out of you think that he's not a flat earther. And I respect your opinion, but I disagree. I think he is a real flat earther. That was a good conversation. Obviously, I disagree with everything he says, and I don't think he's very, very smart. I don't think he understands the physics and everything around it, and I would like to help him understand those things. But I found that a much more fruitful conversation than a lot of the conversations I have with a lot of the flat earthers. Now, I really, really, really have to use the toilet. So I am going to quickly play a song, and then I will come back and I will read the super chats and talk to you guys for a little bit more before we finish tonight.
Oh, Cheswick is a wanker. He wears a tinfoil hat. The conspiracies he believes in just make him look a twat. And everybody laughs at him when he tries to write a tune, 'cause every single word he sings makes him look a loon. Now Cheswick went on mastermind to prove the earth was flat, but he sat there looking gormless, just like Daniel Pratt. When they asked him for some evidence of a non-rotating disc, he spouted loads of gibberish and sounded like he's pissed. Mr. Cheswick is a loser. He tried to strike fight down. He didn't know Craig's a sailor, which made him look a clown. His online views are pitiful. He's as popular as the clap. He talks about conspiracies and believes the world is crap. Now Cheswick's brand of stupid is something to behold. He says that COVID's just made up and he thinks that moonlight's cold. Well, he's a prick of all trades and a master of none. And when you ask him simple things, he just says, oh, well, when Cheswick talks geometry or distance to the sun, he just comes out in a nasty rash and then he bites his tongue. He's clueless how to use a sextant or theodolite. He runs away from easy questions at the speed of light.
Oh, song's finished. I'm not even back. Huh. Good Lord, longest pee ever. Right, guys, that was a very good stream. Guadazen Reber says, why do you think Jaren is a real Flerf? Because of my conversations with him. I think he's genuine. I think he really, really does believe what he says. So, that, I didn't used to think he was, but my conversations with him have made me think he is a real flat earther. And I'm pretty sure Toon agrees with me. That guy says it was shit because you let him talk for 3 hours. This was a structured conversation. We both talked, we both responded, we both had our time to speak. I think it was pretty even. I'm not going to jump in and interrupt him because I wanted to actually have the conversation, and I'm trying to be on my best behavior. But your guys support here is absolutely insane. I mean, 166 new members and a stupid amount of super chats. I'm going to have to smoke a bong before I read. So, oofed. Excuse me. That's better. Right, Jeffy Cones. Bloody hell, excuse me. Jeffy Cones for $2 says, "This is sure to be intriguing." Did I do it? No, you got it wrong. It's interesting. Interesting. And Jeffy Cones gifted a membership. DLZ, member for 17 months, says, "What's dumber, sea level or horizontal eye zone? Both are pretty fucking dumb." I'm smoking Girl Scout cookies at the moment. Fucking amazing. And then Kathleen Verin gifted 5 memberships on top of Jiffy Cone's 1 membership. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Promethean Kitchen, the ex-Flat Earther that I recently interviewed, says for $5 Canadian, "How much science denying do you think Jeran is going to do today?" Well, Jeran is certainly mistrustful of science. I think I may have got through to him a little bit with the explanations of gravity and gas in space and stuff. We'll see. Willie Merck 199 says, "What do you guys think of Southern Israelite?" The guy's a douchebag who's terrified of me. Ellipse to Chris for £5 says, "Jeran is so full of it, he doesn't want the truth as he believes the truth is indoctrination. I enjoy watching these shows. Flat Earth is a joke." Sunsets, yes. Sunsets. Bye, Flat Earth. Terra Dickoff for 5 Terra Dickoff. Oh, it's you, Tomato, for $5 says, "Handler signing..." Wait a sec. This is the guy you assigned me to. Seriously, fine. Just make sure he ignores the red dot. Guess it's a go then. What? DL1 for $5 says, "Remember, kids, if you change your viewpoint based on new information, it means you're disingenuous. Being stubborn is more important than learning." Yeah. When you're wrong, admit you're wrong. And you learn. But honestly, I got so many super chats, guys. You guys are insane. I love you all, not you, Gary. LB Thing Stuff and More has been a member for 7 months. Says, "How do time zones, day-night seasons work, Jeran?" I'm sorry, I missed that. I would have asked him. I apologise. Eclipse Chris. Yes, thank you, Chris. Sorry. Delco's $5 says, "The problem is he pretends like this new live stream stuff matters. He never accepted NASA. It's just a diversion from someone with no other argument." Yeah, the SpaceX live stream thing is weird. I don't know how it happened. It's dodgy. Oh no, it's Andy for £2. Says, "Certain few channels can edit videos in situ." I didn't know that. If you're able to edit things after the case in the live stream, I think it should show that that's the case. I've tried Peace Water, Liz K. I didn't like it. Luke Firewalker has been a member for 28 months. Says, "Interesting." String News 1 for $2. "I don't know. Saying the Earth is flat is mighty stupid." Yeah, it definitely fucking is. You're right. String News 1 for $2 says, "Celestial navigation was done in space. Dumbass." Yes, it was. Sparky Steve for £5. Thank you very much. "Why is it not obvious to flat earthers that all they have is ifs and buts and a clear denial of science? I hope Jeran wakes up before it's too late." Yeah, me too. I mean, you know, he's a flat earther, but compared to a lot of the flat earthers, he's an alright guy. You know? I mean, let's compare Jeranism to Oakley. I know who I'd rather have a beer with. I mean, probably neither of them, but, you know, if I had to, I'd choose Jeran. That's probably just glass Oakley. Stringers 1 for $2 says, "Jeran is an East Pole denier." Yeah, how dare he? Gardrafield for €11 says, "Jism, the cosmonaut cover-up wasn't about the Russians faking the space program. It was about a failed space mission before Gargoon was sent up to space." I'm sure you're correct. Thank you very much. Warboss, my favourite orc living in Canada, for $10 Canadian. "Zoggin Flerfs, they love bashing the globe, but can't build their own model. They can't explain stuff, do any math, or prove a single point. It's as clear as a stomping boot print. They can't prove a thing." Stupid fucking flat earthers. Orcs are smarter. Jeffy Cones for $2 says, "FTFE's chat are all furries now." Apparently so. Vikonuk for 279 Canadian says, sorry I'm late to lunch. Word salad again, huh? Yeah, have to get some dressing on that one. And then Galaxy Man 2015 gave me 1,000 sex. Which is 72 quid. Dude, £70 super chat. That's insane. Thank you very much. Wow. Finally caught FTFE live and can't stick around, so here's my support from an Aussie an Aussie in Sweden. Look forward to listening to the whole stream. Well, Galaxy Man, thank you very much. That is an insane amount of support. Honestly, thank you very much. Ghostly Karma 777 Canadian dollars says, beep boop meow, hail Sagan. Second best Bob for $10, and I read that one. Tinker Phil, member for 4 months, says, when this stream started it was 8 PM there in the UK, in Texas it was 2. So using the Gleason's map, you should see the sun setting north of you, right? Clarence AS2, £5 says, what mark? No, read that one. Nerdler, €5.99 says, the South Atlantic cable system connects Fortaleza, Brazil to Luanda, Angola. Hashtag gotta lie to Flerf. Well, there you go. Madman's been a member for 2 months, says, you look fantastic, Craig. Look at that jawline. Look at those guns. That's what you need to look at. Yes. I love the gym. I am totally addicted to the gym. Thank you very much, Madman. I appreciate it. Vikonut for $13.99 Canadian says, all I do is flurf, 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 no matter what. Got nothing on my mind because thinking hurts too much. And when I see a satellite, my IQ shoots up. And I'm like, huh, how does it stay there? Apparently I was supposed to sing that, but I'm not going to. Stringer News 1 for $2 says, how much longer do we have to put up with this? It's nearly done, I promise. Flat Earth Denier for $5 says, $5 Canadian, says, Guinness World Record for fastest circumpolar navigation north to south in a helicopter. Why the hell can't we use GPS? It works and it's verifiable. Well, according to Jaren, GPS holds the whole scam together. So, Jake the Surgeon for $5. Jaren so far is nothing but baseless assertions, arguments from ignorance, and rejection of evidence that doesn't fit his assumed conclusions. Pathetic. I mean, there is no actual flat earth evidence, is there? That's the thing. Mr. E-Man from $10 Australian says, the problem is that flat earth have no mechanism for the bottom of platform habitat to be obscured during normal conditions, and how that mechanism stops working on the black swan. Yeah, the black swan is a great evidence the earth's a globe, I've got to say. LBS for $5 Canadian says, Jaren not believing anything but conspiracies really isn't healthy. Why don't you go to the edge of your flat earth? What's under your flat earth? Nerdler, oh no, it's Andy says, love the skin color padding on your arms. Skin color padding? Oh, right. That. No, that's real. The Grumpy Old Mechanic, please email Jeranism with that challenge. Lolwat, been a member for 6 months. That's halfway around the sun, dude. Says, show us a model, Jaren. Show us a model. There's no such thing as a flat earth model, my friend. Adam Lepine, member for 2 months, says, lol, tipping point. He really is quite mad, yeah. Flat earth's not growing. It's really not. Christopher Kane, hello, my friend. I love you. For 5, he gifts me 5 memberships. Thank you very much. Wow. Lolwat for $5 says, nutter and personal incredulity. Typical Flerf. The Dunning-Kruger is strong with this one. Hashtag show us a model. They don't have a model. Oh my god, I'm like halfway through the super chats. I'm going to be here all night. The Grumpy Old Mechanic for $2 says, name a science lie. He couldn't, that's for sure. You Are Mopped, who's a new member. Welcome to Destroyers. Thank you very much for joining the crew. Here, guys, right? I've been doing this for like 5 years now, and you know, a lot of people, a lot of fan bases have their names. You know, like people like Justin Bieber are called Bieberites or whatever. You know, people that watch MC Toon are called Toonies. So, what are you guys called? What is my fan base called? What are you? Fitfies? Are you my Fitfies? What is it? Name yourself, people. Name yourself. And You Are Mopped for $10 says, FTFE and Jeranism. I recently interviewed MC Toon and have been trying to connect with each of you on the same purpose. FTFE, I replied to our email. Jaren, I pinged you on Facebook. Is there a better way? You Are Mopped. Honestly, contact me on Facebook because that's probably better than email. Mr. E-Man gifted 5 memberships. You're fucking awesome. And then Siggy Sigweld, turns up and acts like Oprah and gives 50 memberships because you get a membership and 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 you get a membership. Mr. E-Man for $5 Australian says the Honeysuckle Creek dish that was built for manned space missions cost 1.3 million to build in 1965. That's a lot of money. Thank you for that. Floofies, fighters, globetards. FTFEers, warriors. Pawn 886 just says we're normal. And then the Grumpy Old Mechanic says for $10, which of the thousands of peer-reviewed scientific papers on the data and samples from NASA missions has he proved fake? The answer is none. And then Katriana Verin gifts another 50 memberships, coming up like a second Oprah because everyone now has a membership. Good Lord, guys. I can't. Honestly, the support is insane. Design Song 1 for $10. I listened to Jaren make word salad assertions about things he doesn't understand enough to realise he might have a slight learning disability. The sun is closer. He said that. Please get him help. Yeah, he thinks the sun gets closer during the day and goes away during the night. It's, a consequence of flat Earth. Siggy Sigweld for 50 ARSs says, I've always find it ironic that someone as dense as Jeranism doesn't get density. Oh, I'm surprised that all the flat earthers don't cause a black hole when they get together at their events. Design Song 1, $5. Would someone do a video showing that by only citing info that agreed and fully rejecting info that disagreed, that Jaren is a goat in a man's suit? And then Siggy Sigweld, 666 ARSs. Oh my goodness, what is that? That's a lot. Says the government rant gave me a better understanding of Jeranism's problems. He's very, very paranoid. His only real objection to science is based on the paranoid delusion that everyone is lying to him. That's all. That's 100 quid you gave me, dude. I can't believe that. Siggy Sigwad also gifted another 50 memberships. Holy cow. Like, practically you all must be members by now. Siggy. Dude. PhD Tony, $5 Australian, says there are techniques for quantifying and calculating refraction effects in surveying literature. I'm assuming Jaren has read that. No. Haytham ARF for $2. Jeranism, proven flat earth via misunderstanding. That's the only way flat earthers prove anything. And then Siggy Sigweld for 50 ARS says another 50 for good measure. Don't forget to like and sub. Thank you guys. And let's see if we can get those likes that currently sits at 260 up to 300 by the time I finish reading my super chats. Smash that like button like it called you a bad name. Siggy Sigweld with another 50 ARS says FTFE, ask Jaren if he's in touch with Enrique. I already read that one, so thank you very much. Come on, 262. Smash the like button, guys. Albius for $5 Canadian says, Jaren, why would Russia pretend they crashed on the moon? Sorry, I didn't ask that one. I apologize. He probably wouldn't have an answer. I think just conspiracy or something. Demoser, a member for 3 months, says, for Jaren, you had no issue with the methods being used to find oil. How does equal density disequilibrium work for finding oil that is deeply buried? Yeah, sorry I missed that, but, I don't think you really had an answer to my gravity questions. It was interesting, right? Hehe. And then Siggy Sigwald with another 100 ARSs. Jesus says, since Buenos Aires was mentioned, there are no direct flights. However, there is one, EZESCLAKL. Takes 16 hours total. Well, flat earthers never researched, do they? I'm never going to go to sleep with all these super chats. Brendan Cuskelly for $50 Australian. Thank you very much, Brendan. Dude, love you, Craig. I've nothing against having an open mind, just not so open that my brains fall out. Lewis Racecourse History Group, £5 says, cruise ships can't go longer than 12 days at sea without refueling. This is less than 7,000 miles at 500 miles per day. Yeah, Jaren's wrong. The Spirit for $20. Thank you very much. There is a private camp near the South Pole. They have flagged the route to the pole. It is something I want to do in the summer. If I take a time-lapse 24-hour sun in the south, would that change your mind, Jaren? Please email him with that question. PhD Tony, the only real man in the room, says for $5 Australian, flat earth seismic models stop working beyond length scales of about 180 kilometers. After that, they're just way too inaccurate, and he would know that was his PhD. Jake the Surgeon for $5 says that, Jaren, you literally implied Tony was a liar while showing how much of an attention deficit squirrel you are. Dude. Stringers one for $5, sorry. Jaren, you're a liar and not as nearly as elite as you pretend to be. Stringers one, is he a liar or does he just not know? Because I don't think he's a fake Flerf. We'll see. Matt Hooks, been a member for 15 months, says, what's the gain for the rich to have to believe in a globe if the earth is flat? I hate the super rich too, but it's nonsense agreement. It's something to do with if they can make you believe that they can control you. Some nonsense, I don't know. MB £5 says, Jaren, you are a pathetic liar. I understand you're jealous and scared, but denial of science and facts won't help you get any better. Well, there we go. Jake the Surgeon for $5. Jaren, your false equivocation is adorable and you deserve to be laughed at. Oh man. Lord Luminous Poo for $10 to SpongeBob, who lives with his head firmly up his own ass. Jeranism. Ignorant, abhorrent and boring is he. Jeranism. If flat earth nonsense is something you crave, then call him up and he'll talk all day. Jeranism. I'm not singing. Jake the Surgeon for $5. Jaren, you literally disproved yourself in the documentary. Again, the documentary misrepresented Jaren, and we need to be truthful about that. PhD Tony $5 says he never said that people never died of the vaccine. That was me. Apparently, that was me and not Tony. And if I said that, I was wrong. People had died. But PhD Tony then says that anti-vaccine activism is killing people. 100% it is. Not taking the vaccine will kill you. Slithery for £5 says, I'm amazed at how friendly his chat was. Got in around 50 plus comments without getting banned. Wow, 50. Amazing. It's a Rubik's, who's been a member for 7 months, says, denying evidence doesn't make it go away. Of course it does. They have to read their book. Everything I don't like is fake. A Flat Earth's Child Guide to Dismissing Evidence. Lord Luminous Poo for $2 says, we're fighters, duh. Okay, you're my fighters. I like it. Janos Takos for 512 Huff says, we're toonies. We just watch your channel too. Fuck off. Promethean Kitchen for $2 Australian says, NASA has a 24-hour camera for YouTube. Yeah, but it's not always on, to be fair. And Ted Lacoca for $4.99 says, love that Jaren thinks a 200 mile jet stream plus a 500 mile speed for a jet equals 700 mile an hour for the jet. What the fuck, yeah. He didn't quite get that, did he? But wowzers, what an evening, what a night, what an insane level of support. And Stringer News 1 for $2 says, interesting. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I really do appreciate it. This has been an absolutely brilliant stream. I very much enjoyed the conversation with Jaren. Hopefully it will come to have more conversations. Maybe even we can get Dearth. That's what I'd like, because his lies need countering. Jaren, maybe just not smart, all right? A flat earther because he doesn't understand things, right? Which, you know what, can be fixed. Dearth is a liar. He knows he lies. He pushes lies because he's a big fucking liar. That's why he won't talk to me. Thank you very much for tonight, guys. I honestly cannot believe that level of support. It's absolutely mind-blowing. But, I mean, I do have to ask a very serious question of you all. That is that, can we just pretend that airplanes in the night sky are kind of like shooting stars?
Can we pretend that airplanes in the night sky are like shooting stars? Should be wishing for a brain right now, brain right now, brain right now.
Good morning. These words come with a storm warning. Better batten down the hatches, grab some matches and brace yourself for a long day of misery. YouTube has given me the power to reach up into the sky and show you all that we live on the ball. I bring you science that's comprehensible. Your view is indefensible. You're reprehensible.
Go on, Mr. Sensible.
When I was young, I never thought I would be here to see this. A pile of random nonsense dressed up as bullshit. Your ignorance will be the death of us all, like running headfirst full speed into a wall. You could always read a book, buy a telescope, set it up and take a photo of the moon, or just be a buffoon. I send you in a balloon up to the stratosphere in page 3.
You're a few fries short of a happy meal. You're dumber than a box of hair. The wheel's spinning but the hamster's dead. and you're as smart as bait. You forgot to pay your brain bill, you're missing a few buttons on the remote control. 24 cents short of a quarter, you're surfing in Nebraska. You're as bright as Alaska in December and you fell out of your family tree. You don't have all the cornflakes in one box. You got an IQ of 2 and it takes 3 to grunt. The elevator doesn't go all the way up and there's a vacancy on the top floor. Your antenna doesn't pick up all the channels. You're several nuts short of a
You're Mr.
fruitcake.
Sensible, calm down, don't go too hard. You don't need the hard to burying Flerfs in your backyard. You're a man of science, poise and grace. Mage 2 did everything to wipe the grins off the face. So Nathan, get away from those kids. The world is not flat and it doesn't have a lid. Recognise the differences between the textbook and the Bible and control yourself. Lay off your slander and your lies. You're a bunch of knobs poisoning the well of the youth, spreading lies that you like to claim as knowledge and truth. Stop spreading fresh bullshit like the butter on your bread. Maybe a musical assault and knock some sense into your head. I hope one day you'll hear these lyrics and smile, and you realise you used to be a 40-year-old child. Now it's time to wake up, open your eyes and see, and acknowledge the existence of.
You're a few clowns short of a circus. Your phone is off the hook. Your sewing machine is out of thread. You're off foam and no beer. You don't have all your dogs on one leash. An intellect rivaled only by garden tools. There's no grain in your silo and your skylight leaks a little. Your belt doesn't go through all the loops. You couldn't pour water out of a boot without instructions on the heel. Your slinky's kinked, and you're proof that evolution can work in reverse. A few feathers short of a whole duck, one fruit
Can we
loop short of
pretend
a
that
full bowl.
airplanes in the night sky are like shooting stars? Should be wishing for a brain right now, brain right now, brain right now. Can we pretend that airplanes in the night sky are like shooting stars? Should be wishing for a brain right now, brain right now, brain right now.
You thought it was over? Well, I'm still standing while you're swinging, flinging feces, talking shit just like the human centipede. You got the mind of a chimp, and I'm here to expedite your shore leave. Cause I'm a seaman, but not the kind I rit up on your mum's gums. I'm the kind that sailed submarines and fired guns. I could float a boat across the ocean with my eyes closed, circumnavigate the globe with a compass and a bag of sausage rolls. Well, all you can do is nibble on your toes. I'll smack you with the hose that you taught a water level, sit and swivel. You nasal gazing muppet, you can stuff it harder than the wallet stuffed by Warren Buffett. And I don't care about your sauces unless you're serving them. And I don't care about your lines unless you're curving them. Now step away from me, you're sucking up my oxygen with the vacuum where your brain should be, you dumb fuck. Wow, that was most definitely an interesting stream. Thank you to Jeranism for taking the time to talk to me, for agreeing to talk to me. I know that I've got a bad reputation in the flat earth world for being a shouty cunt. And it's a reputation well deserved because I am a bit of a shouty cunt. But I think I showed today, and in a lot of my recent debates, that the conversation doesn't have to go that way. It fully depends on who I'm talking to. Hopefully there'll be a part 2 with Jaren, and I'm really going to work on trying to have a conversation with Dearth because I'd love to destroy him. But thank you all for being here. I really, really appreciate it, my little fighters. Yes, you're all my little fighters. That is now your names. I'll see you soon. But remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flower. 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 Good night, all.